Chapter 190. How dare you use a sword in front of me? Showing off in front of an expert. In the face of Ling Tianli's destructive sword light, Lin Yi didn't panic at all. On the contrary, he was extremely calm at the moment. His face was calm and collected. As he spoke, a long sword appeared in his hand. 100 inscription saint weapon. It was also a 100 inscription saint weapon. Sky Moon Sword. It was true Master Lingyang's sword. After killing true Master Lingyang, Sky Moon Sword was suitable for him to use. With this Sky Moon Sword, he could fully exert his current strength of sword principle. 9th level sword essence rose to the sky. At this moment, he was like a divine sword standing proudly between heaven and earth. The Sky Moon Sword in his hand slashed, and an unparalleled sword light went straight to Ling Tianli's sword light. Clang! There was a clear sound. The two sword lights collided. Suddenly, the unparalleled sword chi swept out and the wind spread out. Countless cracks appeared in the space. Like a broken mirror, it shattered inch by inch. Ling Tianli's sword light was broken. Lin Ye's sword light was indomitable. Sword shield. Ling Tianling's heart trembled. This time, he was really shocked. Others might not know the power of his sword, but he knew that this sword was enough to kill an expert of the same level. Even those of the older generation who had cultivated for 100 or 200 years might not be able to take it. However, in front of Lin Yi, this sword was completely unable to withstand a single blow. Seeing that he was about to be hurt by Lin Ye's sword light, Ling Tianli waved his long sword and drew out a sword shield. Boom! The sword shield finally blocked Lin Ye's sword light. But Ling Tianli was knocked back dozens of meters before he could stabilize himself. At this moment, his face was blue and purple, and he looked extremely ugly. Sword force of heaven and earth. 10,000 swords in origin. Ling Tianli's face became serious. The power of heaven and earth ran all over his body, and the cultivation of the celestial realm was displayed to the peak. He stood in the air, holding a magical sword skill with both hands. For a moment, the sword force of heaven and earth gathered. The world became strangely silent at this moment. The swords of countless experts trembled and jumped. In the end, they broke free from their owners and flew into the sky. At this moment, tens of thousands of swords were floating in the air above the Holy Spirit Square. Every single sword was at least at the level of a spiritual weapon. When gathered together, their power was indescribably terrifying. The experts present also felt the threat of death. Even the elders and the two peak leaders who had just arrived were utterly shocked. They all looked at Ling Tianli expectantly. Ling Tianli was undoubtedly the hope of the Shungling Heaven sect. The stronger he was, the better it would be for the Shungling Heavenly sect. What a powerful astral sword! A single move can cause a change in the heavens and the earth. Too powerful. Eldest senior brother is indeed powerful. I'm not his match. Only the peak master and a few of the elders would be able to withstand this attack. Lin Yi isn't bad either, but it's a pity that he met eldest senior brother. It's an honor to die in the hands of eldest senior brother. Amidst the shock, countless voices of discussion sounded in the square. All the experts stared at Ling Tianli. Countless gods' favored girls looked at their eldest senior brother with adoration. Destroy! Ling Tianli shouted softly. High above, he waved one hand. Tens of thousands of swords formed a world of sword radiance and pressed down on Lin Yi. Wherever the world of sword radiance passed, everything turned into nothingness. The scene of destruction was displayed in the eyes of all the experts. At this moment, Lin Yi was like an ant facing a giant dragon. What awaited him was the disappearance of despair. However, what shocked all the experts was that Lin Yi was not as desperate and panicked as they had imagined. In fact, he was even calmer than before. When Lin Yi was about to be drowned in the world of sword radiance, the Sky Moon Sword in Lin Ye's hand burst out a peerless sword radiance. The sword radiance penetrated the space and illuminated the entire Shungling Heaven sect. One sword radiates chilling light of 19 states. Lin Yi said faintly. The first move of the sky sword 12 styles. At this moment, the sword radiance was peerless and illuminated the 19 provinces. All the experts only felt that the sword radiance was so dazzling that they could not open their eyes. The cold sword radiance made them feel like they were in an ice cellar. Crack! The cold sword radiance suddenly appeared. Everything between heaven and earth faded. All the experts could not open their eyes. He couldn't even release his divine sense. A cracking sound appeared in the space. After this sound, the world became silent. It was so silent that it made people feel scared. In just an instant, the cold sword radiance disappeared. Everything between heaven and earth was restored. All the experts present opened their eyes. When they saw the scene in front of them, everyone was stunned. The first genius of the Shringling Heaven sect. One of the top 10 geniuses of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. Ling Tianli, an expert of the celestial being realm. Dead. That's right, he had fallen. Suspended in the air, his eyes were full of horror and unwillingness. However, there was no trace of vitality left in him. He couldn't be more dead. Tens of thousands of swords around him were all broken into pieces. What? Ling Tianli was dead? What? Tens of thousands of swords were broken into pieces. Impossible. Impossible. All the experts couldn't accept this reality at all. Who was Ling Tianli? His most powerful attack not only failed to kill Lin Yi, who was at the 5th tier of the Fate Realm, but also killed him. No matter what, it was unbelievable. But it was all true. On the other hand, Lin Yi was unscathed. Sky Moon Sword. Suspended in front of him, it devoured the sword essence and sword chi all over the sky. Whoosh! In the silent air, a gust of wind blew past. Hundreds of millions of cold sword lights burst out from Ling Tianli's body. In an instant, Ling Tianli's body turned into points and disappeared. He really disappeared. Swoosh! Swoosh! The silence disappeared. Heaven and earth returned to normal. Tens of thousands of swords turned into fragments and fell to the ground like a meteor shower. Wherever the fragments passed, they cut through the space. Although they had lost a lot of power at the moment. However, if a warrior at the Voiding Realm entered this space, he would be destroyed by the sword fragments. 10 breath. All the fragments fell. The fragments on the high platform were dazzling. This place belongs to you. Let's compete for the remaining 2 places. Of course, you can also choose to challenge me. Lin Yi landed and appeared beside Luo Xing and Silent Soul. He glanced at the dozen or so geniuses on the high platform and said faintly. His tone was casual, but it was extremely awkward in everyone's ears. They were the geniuses of the Holy Soul sect. But Lin Ye's tone sounded like he was their elder. Could they challenge him? How? Even their senior brother Ling Tianli was killed by one sword strike. How could they have the courage to challenge Lin Yi? Senior brother Lin. Senior brother Lin. Senior brother Lin. There was a burst of cheers in the Holy Soul Square. The whole square was like boiling water. At this moment, only senior brother Lin's voice could be heard. Lin Ye's popularity reached a peak. Chapter 191. Lin Ye's name resounded throughout the Holy Spirit Square. He was the symbol of the Holy Spirit sect's monstrous experts. What was monstrous? Lin Yi was monstrous. What was heaven-defying? Lin Yi was heaven-defying. What was strong? Lin Yi was strong. An invincible monstrous expert was invincible in the same realm. He could even cross realms to kill his opponent. Even Ling Tianli, the number 1 genius of the Holy Spirit sect, was killed by him. Who else could be more monstrous than him? Moreover, he was only a 17-year-old youth at the 5th level of the creation realm. Compared to other old monsters who had been cultivating for 100 or 200 years, his cultivation time was like that of a baby. However, his strength was comparable to those old monsters who had cultivated for 100 or 200 years. Let's watch their battle. Let's broaden our horizons, Lin Yi said to Silent Soul and Luo Xing. As he spoke, he walked towards the seats next to the high platform. Luo Xing and Silent Soul, two beautiful women, followed him on his left and right. Who knew how many geniuses fell in love with them? Countless proud daughters of heaven looked at Lin Yi with eyes full of worship. However, when they saw Silent Soul and Luo Xing's faces, they could only sigh. Because the two women were too beautiful. Soon, the three of them sat on the high platform. It's so lively. When Lin Yi and the other two were seated, a loud voice sounded in the void. His voice was like a clap of thunder. When it reached the ears of all the experts, the voice carried with it a Supreme Saint's aura. Feeling the Supreme Saint's aura, the experts in the square roughly knew who had come. Because in the Holy Spirit sect, there were only a few people who had Saint's aura. Moreover, the person who presided over the competition was definitely the sect leader. Sect leader. Sect leader. Immediately, countless experts bowed to the void. Everyone had a respectful look on their faces. Even the monstrous experts on the high platform, who felt superior to the others, stood up and bowed respectfully. Lin Yi didn't dare to be careless. He understood that no matter how monstrous he was only a genius. In front of the Shengling Heavenly Sect's sect master, he was just an ant. In the midst of the greeting, Lin Yi noticed that a cloud had appeared in the sky. An elegant middle-aged man stood on the cloud. This middle-aged man didn't look like an expert at all. Instead, he looked more like a teacher. Yes, that was the feeling he gave off. Of course, Lin Yi didn't dare to treat him as a teacher. This was an invincible expert. I've seen the battle just now. Lin Ye's talent and strength are indeed incomparable to Ling Tianli. He deserves one of the spots. You guys can compete for the other 2 spots. The sect master waved his hand and the cloud disappeared. He landed and said loudly. Then, the sect leader walked to the main seat on the high platform and sat down with a smile on his face. It felt like a spring breeze was caressing his face, making people not wary of him at all. Lin Yi knew that the more he acted like this, the more dangerous it was. As the saying goes, a dog that bites doesn't bark. For a terrifying expert like the sect master, he had kept everything within himself. If they fought, it would be devastating. He couldn't help but look at the sect leader. The moment he looked at the sect leader seemed to have known what he was going to do. That pair of deep eyes had been waiting for him. 2 pairs of eyes collided. Lin Ye's heart couldn't help but tremble. That gaze was like the sea, like a volcano, like purgatory, like a glacier. Whoosh illusion. It was an illusion. Lin Ye's divine consciousness in his sea of consciousness shook and he withdrew his mind. He also withdrew his gaze. He took a deep breath. The sect leader's gaze was too terrifying. If his divine consciousness hadn't reached level 50, the sect leader's gaze would have consigned him to eternal damnation. Fortunately, his divine consciousness was strong and there was a treasure like the soul suppression cauldron to guard his sea of consciousness. While Lin Yi was shocked, he didn't expect the sect leader to be even more shocked than him. The sect leader also didn't expect Lin Ye's willpower to be so terrifying. He actually broke free from his illusion in an instant. More importantly, Lin Yi almost made his illusion collapse. It was the first time he had encountered such a thing. How could a young man in the creation realm be so monstrous? It was simply unimaginable. Lin Yi and the sect leader acted as if nothing had happened. They watched the battle on the high platform. Rumble rumble, Lin Yi killed Ling Tianli and got a spot. The other 15 monstrous experts went to compete for the remaining 2 spots. These 15 monstrous experts were all super existences in the celestial realm. They could destroy heaven and earth with a raise of their hand. Luo Xing and Silent Soul's cultivation were too low. They couldn't see anything at all in such a battle. However, the battle of these monstrous experts was of great help to Lin Yi. After all, the celestial realm was already standing at the peak of martial art. The battle of these monstrous experts in the celestial realm could only be encountered by chance. Their battle experience was even more amazing. For a time, Lin Yi was fascinated by it. Unknowingly, time passed. After 2 hours, all the battles were over. The winners of the 2 spots were beyond everyone's expectations. One was the third senior sister. The other was Huang Tianxiao, a monstrous expert from the previous era. The spots have been decided. Everyone dispersed. The competition was over. The sect leader stood up and announced loudly. After speaking, he waved one hand. A magical force swept over. Lin Yi, Chu Yunyan, and Huang Tianxiao were swept up and taken by the sect leader to the depths of the Shengling heavenly sect. In the blink of an eye they disappeared. The experts in the square also dispersed. Miss Xing'er, come with me to the Lingzhen courtyard to wait for the young master. Silent Soul said to Luo Xing'er. Okay. Sister Silent Soul. How do you know my brother-in-law? Luo Xing'er nodded. Just now, Lin Yi was taken away by the sect leader. She was also going to the place where Lin Yi cultivated to wait for Lin Yi to come back. She was curious. How did this peerless beauty get to know her brother-in-law? More than that, a trace of wariness rose in his heart towards solitary spirit. Her brother-in-law was an unparalleled genius. There were countless beauties who liked him. She had to keep an eye on him for her sister. Moreover, the beautiful woman in front of her was unparalleled in charm. She believed that no man would not be moved by her. Even her brother-in-law might be moved by her. She was confident in her looks, but Silent Soul's combination of charm and holiness was something she did not have. The young master and your sister left the Yunshui kingdom. They were preparing to leave the Sky Sea realm to find you and Ling. They accidentally found the heart of the sword in the Sky Sea city and entered the Sky Sea sect by chance. They were planning to leave the Sky Sea sect. But the demon sect released the demon king. The entire Sky Sea realm was in chaos. The young master used the divine sword to kill the demon king, erased the demon sect, and suppressed the demon sect. In the Sky Sea realm, the young master is a godlike existence. Silent Soul had a look of worship on his face. He recalled everything that happened in the Sky Sea realm. At the side, Luo Xing'er was completely mesmerized. Chapter 192. Like I said, my brother-in-law is the strongest. Luo Xing'er's beautiful face was filled with a sweet smile. Her smile was filled with pride. How could she not be proud to have such a brother-in-law? He doted on her and protected her in everything. Could there be a better brother-in-law in this world than him? Miss Xing'er, tell me about the young master's past. The young master spent most of his time cultivating. I didn't have a chance to know about his past. Silent Soul asked curiously. Since she followed Lin Yi spent most of his time cultivating. Even when they were together, he rarely talked about the past. It was impossible to ask Luo Bingyue. With Luo Bingyue's character, she naturally wouldn't ask for a rebuff. Of course, Luo Bingyue didn't do anything to her. Brother-in-law and sister were engaged. But at that time, brother-in-law had no cultivation, no martial soul, and no talent. Many people looked down on him, but no one knew that his cultivation had never reached the 6th stage of the Hotian realm in 3 days. He had magical defense and attack, and was invincible in the same realm and even beyond. My sacred life physique was snatched by brother-in-law for me. Luo Xing'er and Silent Soul walked toward Lingzhen courtyard. The two talked as they walked. Unknowingly, the two had become familiar with each other, like sisters who had been together for a long time. In the Shengling heavenly sect, in addition to the illusory sea and the land of Holy Spirit, there was another holy land. This was the saint's tomb. The saint's tomb buried the fallen and dead saints of the Shengling heavenly sect for tens of thousands of years. What was a saint? A saint was an existence that surpassed the peak of martial art. Martial arts were always mortals, and to break through martial arts was to become a saint immediately. Saints had the power to pierce through the heavens and the earth. They had a lifespan that mortals could not compare to. They had an indestructible golden body. They had a transcendent status and unparalleled strength. Every saint was an invincible expert that stood at the pinnacle of heaven and earth. Heavenly Purification Territory was a fifth-grade force and sect. They all had saints. The sect master was also a saint. To be more precise, the sect master was not a true saint. He could only be considered a half-saint. Of course, so long as one had attained the half-saint realm, one would usually be addressed as a half-saint. This was a form of respect towards this expert. After all, one couldn't address him as Lord Half-Saint, right? Whoosh! After the sound of something breaking through the air, Lin Yi, Chu Yunyan, and Huang Tianshao were swept away by the sect master. They passed through a magical barrier and arrived in front of a huge tomb. Around the tomb, there was an unparalleled saint aura. This saint aura was more than 1,000 times stronger than the sect leaders. The sect master waved his hand. The three of them landed on the ground. The mysterious saint aura made the three of them tremble, and they didn't dare to move. 1 month later. The royal banquet shall begin. I'll give you 20 days to cultivate. In these 20 days you will cultivate here. Of course, you can also leave this place to cultivate elsewhere. If you have any questions about your cultivation during this period of time, you can ask me. The sect master glanced at Lin Yi and the other two. He nodded in satisfaction. Then he said lightly, "If it weren't for the royal banquet, the three of them wouldn't even be qualified to cultivate in the saint's tomb, and the sect master wouldn't give them pointers." The sect master was a half-saint. To be able to receive pointers from a half-saint was definitely something that could only be chanced upon. "Thank you, sect master. Thank you, sect master. Thank you, sect master." Lin Yi and the other two looked calm on the surface, but they were incomparably excited. To be able to cultivate in the saint's tomb and receive pointers from the sect master, there was no one else in the entire Shengling heavenly sect other than the three of them. It would be strange if they weren't excited. Even Lin Yi was extremely excited. After all, he was only in the creation realm, and there were too many things that he needed to know. Although Biluo knew, Biluo had always been in a deep sleep. Wanting to obtain some cultivation knowledge from her was simply a dream. More importantly, what Biluo knew wasn't something that Lin Yi could come into contact with at the moment. The Shengling heavenly sect hasn't entered the Great Xiao world for 1,000 years. I hope that one of the three of you can enter the Great Xiao world. However, this hope is too small, too small. The sect master's gaze swept across Lin Yi and the other two. Looking up at the tomb, he couldn't help but reveal a trace of disappointment. However, he couldn't blame Lin Yi and the other two for this. After all, there were only 3 places in the entire Yuntian kingdom. Moreover, even if Lin Yi and the other two obtained a place, they might not be able to enter the Great Xiao world. It was undoubtedly too difficult to enter the Great Xiao world. The chances were too small. Sect Master, can you tell me about the royal banquet and the Great Xiao world? Could there be a connection between the two? Lin Yi looked at the sect master and knew that he was disappointed in their cultivation, and that they had no chance of entering the Great Xiao world. He couldn't help but be curious about the royal banquet and the Great Xiao world. One had to know that the Shengling heavenly sect was a 5th-grade sect. The strongest demon-like experts were all extremely powerful, but in the eyes of the sect master, they didn't even have a chance. This made Lin Yi extremely curious. After pondering for a moment, he asked the sect master. The Great Xiao world. It's an invincible era left behind by the heavenly purification territory in the ancient times. However, that era has been drowned by time. Now, it's just a magical relic, or rather, a treasure trove. In that relic, one can obtain opportunities and resources. Of course, the greater the opportunity, the greater the danger. There are countless experts who want to enter the great Xia world relic. However, that world can only be entered by those below the heavenly realm. Saints who appear in there will be wiped out. Moreover, it's extremely difficult to enter. Only the empires have the strength to open the entrance to the great Xia world relic. Even so, it will consume a terrifying amount of resources. Therefore, every place is extremely precious. The two empires control the places. The royal banquet is to select a few places from the kingdoms to enter the great Xia world relic with the places of the empires. The sect master spoke in a neither fast nor slow manner. He told them about the great Xia world relic and the royal banquet. Only a few people knew about these things. If the three of them weren't part of the Shungling heavenly sect's quota, they wouldn't have the right to know. The three of them listened carefully, not missing a single word. Gradually, the three of them understood what the royal banquet was. The royal banquet was just for the Cloud Sky Kingdom to select the most demon-like experts for the empire. If one could become the top 3 demon-like experts in the royal banquet, they would have the chance to enter the empire. Chapter 193. Sect Master. Do you know how many slots there are in the empire? Huang Tianxiao mustered up his courage and asked. He was originally ambitious, but after knowing about the royal banquet and the great Xia world, he lost his confidence. After all, there were only 3 slots in the entire Cloud Sky Kingdom. He wasn't confident that he could get one of the slots. The great Xia world. It opens once every 50 years. The number of people who enter each time is not fixed, but it's about the same. There should be about 1,000 geniuses from the 2 empires who enter the great Xia world each time. When the sect master heard Huang Tianxiao's question, he couldn't help but frown. But he didn't blame Huang Tianxiao. He told him about the number of slots that entered the great Xia world each time. In the Cloud Sky Kingdom, he might be someone important, but in front of the empire, he was nothing. There were many things that he couldn't touch. 1,000 slots. Our Cloud Sky Kingdom only has 3. Chu Yunyan sighed. Everyone knew that in a world where the strong were respected, resources were extremely precious. To get status and resources, it was completely related to one's strength. If the Cloud Sky Kingdom was weak, they wouldn't even get many slots. Okay, get ready to cultivate. The sect master took in a deep breath. He dissipated the disappointment in his heart. He said to Lin Yi and the other 2. As he spoke, he waved his hand and a mysterious force appeared. This force was strange and domineering. When the force landed on the tombstone began to tremble. Gradually, a crack appeared beside the tombstone. The crack was only 1 meter wide, just enough for one person to enter. The moment the crack appeared, the tombstone exuded an unparalleled sage aura. In the sage aura there was also the power of a sage. In front of this sage aura and power, Lin Yi and the other 2 almost knelt down. Screech. Huang Tianxiao took a deep breath. He walked towards the crack step by step. Before he even entered the crack, blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. His face was pale and weak, as if he was seriously ill. But Huang Tianxiao forced himself to endure. He thought that even if he couldn't get one of the slots in the royal banquet, he couldn't miss the saint's tomb in these 20 days. This place could make him even more monstrous and powerful. As soon as he entered the crack, he couldn't hold it in any longer. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell into the saint's tomb. In the end, he disappeared into the saint's tomb. Immediately after, Chu Yunyan glanced at Lin Yi. Lin Yi shook his head and smiled, indicating that he would not go in for the time being. Indeed, he still had something to ask the sect master, so he wouldn't go in first. Chu Yunyan's silhouette flickered as she withstood the saint's pressure and moved towards the crack. She had learned from Huang Tianxiao's mistake and didn't try to force her way in. Instead, she carefully resisted the saint's pressure. Finally, he entered the saint's tomb with a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Sect Master. After Huang Tianshao and Chu Yunyan entered the saint tomb, Lin Yi bowed to the sect master. Yes. The sect master nodded. Junior would like to ask for guidance. What is the celestial realm? How do I break through the celestial realm? What are the conditions? Lin Yi bowed again and asked. Now, he wanted to know the secrets of the celestial realm. Only by understanding the celestial realm could he find a way to break the shackles of the creation realm and enter the celestial realm. Of course, he was only at the 5th level of the creation realm. There was still a long way to go before he could reach the celestial realm. Even in the land of Saint Spirit, it would take some time. Of course, he didn't know the situation inside the saint's tomb and didn't know how it would help his cultivation. If the saint's tomb could quickly improve his cultivation, then he wouldn't be far from the celestial realm. Celestial realm, unity of heaven and man, above 80% of the realm, comprehending the Tao of celestial realm. Actually, there are no conditions. Comprehension and cultivation can only be understood and not taught. You're now at the 5th level of the creation realm, so it's best for you to improve your cultivation and cultivate in the saint's tomb. Inside, you'll know what a celestial realm is and what a saint is. There are only 4 stages in the celestial realm, namely, 3 flowers at one's prominence, 5 chi rising sun, 9 nines returning to origin, and transcendence golden body. You can only pass the divine tribulation and break through to the saint realm if you have a similar dharma. This is my cultivation experience. Take a look and maybe you can use it for reference. The sect leader explained patiently. As the sect leader of the Saint Spirit Heaven sect, he naturally did his best to guide the younger generation of the sect. He didn't want to mislead a genius because of himself. After speaking, he took out a manual from his storage bag. The manual contained the sect leader's cultivation experience. Moreover, it contained some of the sect leader's experience of breaking through to the celestial realm. It went without saying that someone who could become a half-saint was extremely talented. Of course, this could only be used as a reference, because everyone's cultivation path was different. To become a saint, one had his or her own holy path. Thank you, sect leader. Lin Yi bowed, feeling extremely happy in his heart. Go ahead and cultivate. If you have any cultivation problems, you can look for me. The sect leader walked towards the palace not far away from the saint's tomb. This palace was also the place where he cultivated all year round, guarding the saint's tomb of the Saint Spirit Heaven sect. Lin Yi put away the manual. After pondering for a moment, he turned and left the saint's tomb. Now, he still had some things to deal with. As for cultivation, he wasn't in a hurry. Moreover, his main goal now was to improve his cultivation level, and the land of the Saint Spirit was the best place. Leaving the saint's tomb, Lin Yi returned to the Lingjin courtyard. In the courtyard, Silent Soul and Luo Xing were already waiting. He could only hear the 2 girls talking and laughing, and from time to time, he could hear Luo Xing's sweet and crisp laughter. Hearing this laughter, Lin Yi was slightly relieved. He was worried that Luo Xing would leave a shadow in the Saint Spirit Heaven sect and affect her character. Now, he was relieved. Luo Xing was still the innocent, lively, lovely, and beautiful girl from before. Brother-in-law. Luo Xing was the first to see Lin Yi. Luo Xing was very happy to see Lin Yi. Her petite and delicate body threw itself into Lin Yi's arms. She looked so cute that he couldn't help but feel pity for her. You've grown a lot taller. You haven't lowered your cultivation level. Lin Yi reached out and stroked Luo Xing's hair. He said. He found that Luo Xing was taller and more beautiful than when she was in the Yunshui kingdom. Her temperament was more extraordinary, and her cultivation level had reached the 9th level of the void refining stage. She was not far from the creation stage. She was a sacred body, the sacred body of life. No one could compare to her in cultivation. Her cultivation level was much higher than her sister's. Brother-in-law, Xing missed you so much, Luo Xing said in a low voice, and a blush appeared on her beautiful little face. Chapter 194. Lin Yi stroked Luo Xing's hair and didn't say anything. After a while, he gently pushed Luo Xing away. With a thought, the ninefold space opened. Suddenly, there was a spatial fluctuation in the Lingzhen courtyard. Then, the air trembled. 3 figures appeared in the Lingzhen courtyard. A faint fragrance wafted over. 3 beautiful women appeared in front of them. Luo Xing was stunned when she saw the 3 of them. Then, she jumped over happily. Sister! Luo Xing's beautiful little face was covered in sparkling and translucent tears. She was like a pear blossom bathed in rain. She hugged Luo Bingyue. The 2 sisters were twins. They were the same age. Luo Bingyue was just born before Luo Xing. The 2 looked exactly the same. However, Luo Bingyue had the emperor body and Luo Xing had the mortal body. Now, Luo Xing had the holy body. After leaving the Yunshui kingdom, she thought that she would never see her sister again. Naturally, she was very happy to see her sister again. It's good that you're fine. Luo Bingyue's voice was still cold, but her tone was much gentler. Her personality was like this. She wasn't cold and heartless. Her sister was connected by blood. After they separated, she was more worried than anyone else. She was even more worried than her parents. Sister Bingyue, you 2 look so alike. If it weren't for your cultivation and temperament, I wouldn't be able to tell you 2 apart. It's amazing. I didn't expect that there would be 2 people who look exactly the same. Lingxi was shocked when she saw Luo Bingyue and her sister. She didn't expect that there would be 2 people who looked exactly the same in this world. Apart from their temperament and charm, the 2 of them were simply carved from the same mold. One was cold and holy, keeping people thousands of miles away. The other was gentle and cute, like the sister next door. Call me Sister Xing. I'm the same age as your sister Bingyue, Luo Xing said with a sly smile on her face. Even though she was the same age as Luo Bingyue and looked the same, she was still very young. However, her lively personality made her look younger than Luo Bingyue. Sister Xing. In the end, Lingxi did not care. She called out to big sister Xing. Speaking of which, she was indeed 3 or 4 years younger than Luo Xing. Among the girls, Silent Soul was the oldest, 20 years old. Luo Linger was 18 years old. Bingyu and Luo Xing were also 18 years old, but they were a little younger than Luo Ling, only 2 or 3 months old. Lingxi was the youngest, only 14 years old. Lin Ye's age was awkward. At the age of 17, he had just left his teenage years and become a young man. Among the girls, he was only slightly older than Lingxi. We're finally reunited. I have something to tell you. At this moment Lin Yi spoke. After 2 years, after leaving the Yunshui kingdom, they were finally reunited. Now, he was pressed for time. Every minute and every second was important. After he dealt with some things, he would go to the land of Holy Spirit or the saint's tomb to cultivate. He would strive to improve his cultivation in these 20 days, so that he would have a better chance at the royal banquet. At the royal banquet, he would face all super geniuses and experts. In the future, the experts and geniuses he would face would be even more terrifying. He couldn't help but feel a little pressure. At the same time, it also made him want to fight. With pressure, there would be motivation. With threats, there would be challenges. With challenges and motivation, he could become stronger. While talking, they walked to the living room in the pavilion and took their seat. Brother-in-law is going to attend the royal banquet. The chances of entering the top 3 are slim. After taking their seat, Luo Xing was the first to speak. What do you mean? Lin Yi looked at Luo Xing with a smile on his face and asked. In fact, he also knew that the chances were slim. It could be seen from the tone and expression of the suzerain. After all, there were too many geniuses and experts in the Yuntian kingdom, and each of them was extremely terrifying. It was really difficult for so many geniuses to compete for 3 places. Now hearing Luo Xing-er's words, he was a little curious. Could it be that Luo Xing-er had any news? Then he thought that Ling Tianli was the eldest senior brother, and it was certain that he would attend the royal banquet. Lin Ye's existence was really unexpected. Since Ling Tianli was going to attend the royal banquet, he should know something about Theta Scarabii. Luo Xing-er was with Ling Tianli, so it was normal for her to hear some news. There are several super geniuses in the Yuntian kingdom. The first prince, the third prince, and the 7th prince. Blood Sword Moon. Killing Blade Lai Tenyu. Demonic Blood Child. Child Nanyang. These people are much stronger than Ling Tianli. No matter in realm, strength, talent, or opportunity, Ling Tianli can't compare with them. In addition to these people, there are many geniuses and experts similar to Ling Tianli. Luo Xing-er said worriedly. Ling Tianli had no confidence to defeat these people. In this royal banquet, the biggest competition was actually the 3 princes and child Nanyang. The others were just foils, and the places to enter the world of Xia had nothing to do with them at all. In other words, except for several princes and some of the most powerful geniuses, the others were just going to the royal banquet to show their faces. Luo Xing-er's worry was not that she didn't believe in Lin Ye's talent and strength, but the key was that the competitors in this royal banquet were too powerful. If Lin Ye's realm was the same as theirs, he might have a chance to compete. Just take it as an eye-opener. Lin Yi smiled without any worry. To be honest, he was not too sure about this royal banquet. It was a gain to be able to see the geniuses and experts of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. Of course, he was not a pushover. Can we go? Luo Bingyue asked. You stay in the Shengling Heavenly Sect. This time, I'll go alone. Lin Yi shook his head. He originally thought that he was strong enough to protect Luo Xing-er and the others. Since he saw the sect master's power as a saint and heard the sect master's words, he knew that he was still too weak. In terms of talent, his talent was nothing in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. In terms of strength, he was vulnerable in front of a half-saint or even a celestial being. Not to mention that there were other kingdoms and empires outside the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, as well as those third-class, second-class, and first-class transcendent forces. The strength of the heavenly purification territory was beyond his imagination. Therefore, he could only let Luo Bingyue and the others stay in the Shengling Heavenly Sect to cultivate for the time being. He had also thought of letting Luo Bingyue and the others cultivate in the Ninefold Space, but after thinking about it, he realized that it couldn't go on like this. After all, the Ninefold Space was not connected to this world. Unless his cultivation reached a certain level and he cultivated the chaotic divine tree, the Ninefold Space would basically become a world of its own. At that time, there would be no problem cultivating in it. Young master, I'll go with you. After going to the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, I want to go back to the Heavenly Fox clan to take a look, Silent Soul said in a low voice. Chapter 195. Hearing Silent Soul's words, Luo Bingyue and the other girls looked at Silent Soul. Their faces were filled with confusion. Can we go back to the Heavenly Fox clan in Cloud King City? Lin Yi paused. He immediately asked. If he could go to the Heavenly Fox clan from Cloud King City, he was really tempted. After all, the Heavenly Heart Divine Fruit was in the Heavenly Fox clan. If he could get the Heavenly Heart Divine Fruit, then the only thing left was the All-Spirit Water. The All-Spirit Water was in the Dragon Palace. There was no need to think about it for now. Thinking of this, Lin Yi looked at Silent Soul quietly. Silent Soul proposed to go with him, and back to the Heavenly Fox clan. Did she know that he needed the Heavenly Heart Divine Fruit? Yes. Gongzi needs the heavenly heart divine fruit. You will know when the time comes. Silent Soul looked at Lin Ye's eyes and knew what Lin Yi meant. She didn't dare to hide it, because she knew that Lin Yi needed the heavenly heart divine fruit. She knew when Lin Yi went to the Sky Demon Tower to get the 5-colored Godstone, but she didn't say it out loud. Now she wanted to take this opportunity to go back to the Heavenly Fox clan with Lin Yi. Okay, you can come with me. Lin Yi didn't expect Silent Soul to say the Heavenly Heart divine fruit directly. He couldn't help but feel satisfied. At least this woman didn't hide it from him. Moreover, everyone had their own secrets, provided that they didn't betray Lin Yi. He nodded and agreed, letting Silent Soul go with him. Brother-in-law, Luo Xing also wanted to go. She called out to Lin Yi softly, pouting her lips, looking very cute. You guys cultivate well. Wait for me to come back. Alright, I have something good for you. Choose for yourself. Lin Yi moved his divine telekinesis and took out 8 items from the 9-fold space. Rings, necklaces, hairpins, bracelets, etc. They were all exquisite and beautiful accessories. Brother Lin, are these for us? So beautiful. Ling Shi looked at the 8 pieces of jewelry floating in front of Lin Yi. Suddenly, her beautiful eyes lit up. Girls were not immune to jewelry, and they loved beautiful jewelry. Even the cold Luo Bingyue couldn't help but be moved when she saw these ornaments. He just didn't show it on the surface. Yes. Everyone, choose one. Lin Yi nodded with a smile. Hearing Lin Ye's words, Luo Xing's slender, jade-like fingers touched her rosy lip. She then chose an aqua blue necklace. The aqua blue necklace looked extremely beautiful, just like the indigo heart. Ling Shi chose a bracelet. Silent Soul chose a hairpin. Luo Linger chose a bracelet. Luo Bingyue glanced at Lin Yi, and her slender jade-like hand reached for the ring. But just as she was about to touch the ring, she retracted her hand and turned to a bracelet. She held the bracelet in her hand. This action stunned everyone present. Soon, everyone understood. But they didn't say it out loud. Lin Yi naturally wouldn't say it out loud. He could only sigh in his heart, and at the same time feel a little happy. It's really beautiful. This is the most beautiful accessory I've ever seen. Brother-in-law, where did you buy this? Young Master Lin, where can I buy such accessories? Holding the accessories, the girls were extremely excited. They carefully looked at it. Silent Soul's gaze, intentionally or unintentionally, glanced at Lin Yi. Then, a sly smile appeared on her beautiful and seductive face. She tried to use her divine sense to approach the hairpin, because she saw something strange from Lin Ye's expression. And she also knew the young master's principles. Maybe these accessories weren't simple. The moment her divine sense approached the hairpin, her entire divine sense was pulled away by the mysterious power of the hairpin, and she entered a gray world. His spiritual sense quickly scanned this dusky world. She quickly figured it out. This was a small world. 10 miles long, 10 miles wide, and 10 miles tall. It was so simple. She couldn't help but be stunned. A look of shock appeared on her beautiful face, as if she had seen a ghost. Luo Xing Luo Bingyue, and the others, at this time, noticed the change in expression on Silent Soul's face. They couldn't help but be shocked, not knowing what happened to Silent Soul. However, Silent Soul quickly reacted. Her divine sense returned to the real world, but her face was still in shock. Silent Soul, what's wrong? Luo Linger asked. The other girls also looked at Silent Soul, their faces full of curiosity and concern. Space treasure. This is a space treasure. Silent Soul excitedly waved the hairpin in her hand and said. She looked extremely excited, like a child who got candy. Space treasure. In this world, storage bags were used. Storage bags had limited items. Usually, it could only hold 1 or 2 cubic meters, and couldn't hold more than that. The wealth, resources, and wealth of the strong were extremely terrifying. Storage bags were simply not enough. However, space treasures had long been extinct in the ancient times. She didn't think that she could have such a powerful space treasure. It was 10 miles long, wide, and tall. Such a space treasure, no matter how many resources and treasures there were, it could easily hold them. What? Space treasure? Hearing Silent Soul's words, the girls thought they heard it wrong. But they still tried to size up the accessories they chose. Their divine sense swept over. Soon, the beautiful faces of the girls had the same change in expression. Shock. Yes. It was shock, just like Silent Soul. They were all in shock. This was because they had also discovered that the accessory they had chosen was an extraordinary spatial treasure. This spatial treasure could store countless resources and treasures. Compared to the storage bag, it was billions of times more. It really is a space treasure. The space inside is so big. Big Brother Lin, where did you get so many space treasures? This is amazing. Luo Xing and the others were all very excited. They didn't think that one day they would have a space treasure that could hold many things. With this space treasure, they could store as many things as they wanted, even a mountain could be stored inside. Last time when I went back to the Yunshui kingdom, Master left it for me, Lin Yi said. The master that he had never met made him feel very distant. Is that so? Luo Xing replied. She and Luo Bingyue knew the origin of Lin Yi. He came from the 100,000 mountains, and his identity was very mysterious. So when he mentioned master, the two girls thought of Lin Ye's identity and background. Next, Lin Yi distributed some precious resources to Luo Bingyue and the others. Let them cultivate in peace in the Shringling heavenly sect. Chapter 196. In the land of Saint Spirit, Lin Yi went straight to the 900th step. He didn't go any closer, because he found that there was a problem. Within the 900th step, the cultivation speed was the same. There was no need to get too close to the Saint Spirit heavenly steel. He sat cross-legged and began to cultivate. When he came in, the guardian checked his identity crystal chip and learned that he could cultivate in the land of Saint Spirit for 120 hours every month, which was 10 days and 10 nights. In a month, he could cultivate for 10 days and 10 nights without stopping. Compared to Ling Tianli's previous time, it was 4 times more. There was no other reason. It was because Lin Yi broke through the sea of illusion and killed Ling Tianli on his first try. No matter how one looked at it, Lin Yi was much stronger than Ling Tianli. At least for now. The Saint Spirit heavenly sect naturally wouldn't be stingy with cultivation resources to cultivate such a monster. Cultivation. Other than cultivation, there was only cultivation. However, while he was cultivating, Biluo helped him observe and record the formation patterns on the Saint Spirit heavenly steel. Those formation patterns recorded magical martial arts technique. 3 days passed. Lin Yi left the land of Saint Spirit because he had reached the peak of the 5th level of the creation realm. He left the land of Saint Spirit to break through. On the 4th day, Lin Yi entered the land of Saint Spirit again. At this time, his cultivation had reached the 6th level of the creation realm. On the 8th day, Lin Yi left the land of Saint Spirit. On the 10th day, Lin Yi entered the land of Saint Spirit to cultivate and reach the 7th level of the creation realm. On the 15th day, Lin Yi left the land of Saint Spirit. After leaving this time, Lin Yi didn't go to the land of Saint Spirit again because the time in the land of Saint Spirit was used up. After the breakthrough, he went directly to the saint's tomb. At this time, his cultivation had reached the 8th level of the creation realm. In half a month, Lin Ye's cultivation. He had reached the 8th level from the 5th level of the creation realm. Such a cultivation speed was simply unimaginable. After reaching the creation realm, an ordinary monster would need years to advance to the next level. Some would even be stuck at the 1st level of the creation realm for life. In front of the saint tomb, Lin Yi pondered for a moment, then stepped forward. Withstanding the pressure of the saint aura, he entered the saint tomb. The first time he entered the saint's tomb, he was shocked by what he saw. What appeared before him was a graveyard and tombstones. Each tombstone in front of the tomb exuded a mystical saint aura. Thousands of tombstones and thousands of saint auras fused together, making the saint aura of the entire saint tomb so terrifying that it made one's heart palpitate. Every beam of saintly might was a rule. Every law was a domain law that the saint had mastered when he was alive. After death, the saintly way cultivator left behind a wisp of saintly might, which contained the domain precepts. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi was completely stunned. Lin Yi spat out a mouthful of blood under the destructive saint aura, his face pale and powerless. Choose a quiet place. Refine the blood of the great sage. In his sea of consciousness, Biluo's voice sounded. There was a hint of joy in his voice. Refine the blood of the great sage? Lin Yi was shocked. He thought that he had misheard, but then he understood that his communication with Biluo was completely in his sea of consciousness. It was no different from his subconscious, so there was no way he had misheard. The more it was like this, the more shocked he was. What kind of existence was the blood of the great sage? How could he, a martial artist in the creation realm, dare to touch such a thing? Not to mention the creation realm. Even a celestial being or a half-saint would not dare to touch the blood of the great sage. Refining the blood of the great sage in such a place, was he not courting death? That's right. Others naturally can't. If it was in other places, even with me, it wouldn't work. Now with this saint's tomb, the blood of the great sage can naturally be refined. If you succeed, you will be invincible in this small era. Biluo's voice continued to sound. However, no matter what she said, Lin Yi felt that it was a little unreliable. Let's try. In an instant, Lin Yi's thoughts spun thousands of times in his mind. Even if it was risky, he had to try. On the path of cultivation, there was no such thing as a sudden success. Naturally, it was impossible for one to be safe and sound. Opportunities were accompanied by danger, and the greater the opportunity, the greater the danger. This was an eternal law. Subsequently, Lin Yi moved forward step by step, passing by Huang Tianxiao and Chu Yunyan. Both of them had entered a state of selflessness. Neither of them knew of Lin Yi's arrival. 2 hours later, Lin Yi entered the center of the saint's tomb. In this place, the saint aura was very strong, and the tombstones around were also very large. Looking at the words on the tombstones, one could tell that these saints had passed away a long time ago. 9 drops of the blood of the great sage. Each drop has the purest original attributes. Such saint blood is more precious than the blood of the saint king. These 9 drops of the blood of the great sage are divided into metal, wood, water, fire, earth, space, time, death, and life. With your current cultivation strength, you can only control and refine metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. When you master the real domain rule, you will be able to touch space, time, death, and life. Biluo's voice was neither fast nor slow. He remembered the last time in the 9th mountain. When she saw the first drop of the great sage's blood, she did not care at all. But when the 9 drops of the great sage's blood appeared, she was really shocked, but more than that, she was excited. Because the 9 drops of the great sage's blood were the purest and most original, and they had 5 attributes and 4 rules. To be able to gather such a combination in the 9th mountain of the Tianhai sect was indeed shocking. That's right. The 5 attributes are not the same as the 5 elements of the Saint Spirit in the Saint Spirit Heavenly Steel. Lin Yi suddenly remembered. The 5 Saint Steels in the Saint Spirit Heavenly Steel, the 5 elements of the Saint Spirit Heavenly Steel. It happened to be metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Now, his 9 drops of saint blood also had the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Yes, it is indeed the same. First, you should refine the blood of the great sage. When the time comes, I will tell you the martial skills on the Saint Spirit Heavenly Steel. Combined with the Saint Spirit Heavenly Steel's cultivation and the power of the great sage's blood, you will be able to cultivate a terrifying martial skill. Biluo's voice said. When Lin Yi was cultivating in the Saint Spirit land, she had already memorized all the runes on the Saint Spirit Heavenly Steel. She was even certain that those runes were magical martial skills. However, she was not able to decipher the runes for the time being and could not form a complete martial skill. Tell me now, how should I refine the blood of the great sage? I hope you are not mistaken. Otherwise, we will vanish into thin air. When that time comes, we will truly die without leaving a trace. Even God will not be able to save us. Lin Yi heard Biluo's words. He could not help but feel a trace of excitement in his heart. If he really refined the blood of the great sage and cultivated the martial skills on the Saint Spirit Heavenly Steel with the 5 Saint Steels, what kind of scene would that be? He did not dare to imagine. That scene was also beyond the scope of his imagination. However, the most important thing right now was to refine the saint blood. If he failed to refine the blood of the great sage, he and Biluo would vanish into thin air. Everything else was just empty talk. Fuse with the saint aura here. Adapt to this place, Biluo said slowly word by word. She was afraid that Lin Yi would make a mistake. Chapter 197. The Saint Might was unparalleled. Inside the Saint Tomb, Lin Yi chose the place where the Saint Might was the most terrifying and sat cross-legged. His whole body was being crushed by the Saint Might. Saint was mortal. Saint was to transcend the mortal and enter the Saint realm. Mortal, all mortal things. The peak of martial arts was also mortal. Only by surpassing the peak of martial arts could one enter the Saint realm. The blood of the great sage of the gold element. After an unknown amount of time, Lin Yi finally calmed down. At this time, Biluo's voice sounded in his sea of consciousness. She reminded Lin Yi to take out the blood of the great sage of the gold element. This time, what was being sacrificed was the blood of the great sage of the gold element among the 9 drops of the great sage's blood. Lin Yi was reminded. Without the slightest hesitation, his divine consciousness moved. In the 9-fold space, a magical jade bottle appeared. On this jade bottle, there was a magical seal formation pattern. Swoosh, 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 the jade bottle appeared, suspended in front of him. Lin Yi waved his hands, and a formation pattern was displayed. Although he did not specifically cultivate formations, he had a heaven-defying divine consciousness. Coupled with Biluo's guidance, some simple seal formation and unseal were still easy for him. In the air, a magical formation pattern-like shadow appeared. After more than 10 breaths, the formation pattern seal on the jade bottle was unsealed. Boom! The moment the formation pattern on the jade bottle was unsealed, a destructive aura burst out. In front of this aura, the endless Saint Might could not help but evade, forming a terrifying collision. It was sparkling and translucent, but it also had a pure gold color. At this moment, with Lin Yi as the center, the area within 100 meters had completely turned into a golden world. A golden world, the ultimate destruction and destruction. Gold element, the king of destruction, unparalleled sharpness. Lin Yi's body started to crumble rapidly. It was as if he was about to vanish into thin air. Lin Yi was shocked to the extreme. He had not expected things to turn out this way. Moreover, the horror of the blood of the great sage made him taste inhumane torture and pain. This was simply the 18th level of hell. It was even more torturous than the 18 levels of hell. Death, at this moment, was definitely a happy thing. 9 Heavens God Tower. Starry Sky Divine Art. Divine Dragon 9 Transformations. No matter how much pain and suffering, his sea of consciousness had always been clear. This was the true pain. It was impossible for him to even fall unconscious. In this sea of consciousness, Biluo's voice rang out. He reminded Lin Yi to use the 9 heavens divine watchtower, the starry sky divine art and the divine dragon 9 transformations to resist the power of the great sage's blood. Inside his sea of consciousness, Biluo stabilized the soul suppression cauldron. This was to ensure that even if Lin Ye's body vanished into thin air, his spirit would still exist. After being reminded, Lin Yi hurriedly operated everything he had under his control, concealing his spirit and qi. No matter what was destroyed, his will was like a blade that would not allow his will to sink into oblivion. His qi in the air, the aura of the great sage's blood flowed, distorting space and air. Saint Tomb, the unparalleled saint might collided with the aura of the great sage's blood. With Lin Yi as the center, the area within 100 meters was destroyed. However, the collision between the saint might and the saint blood's aura did not spread out and was only limited to a certain range. This was the rule. Domain rule. The domain rule that only a saint could possess. Close to death. Close to destruction. The body collapsed. The body recovered. The entire process was only a billionth of an instant. Lin Ye's life and body were constantly collapsing and recovering, over and over, without the slightest interruption. If there was the slightest interruption, Lin Yi would instantly vanish into thin air. Time, no one knew how much time had passed. Lin Yi was still in between Chu Yun's destruction and recovery, in extreme pain and torment. Feel the saint might. Refine the great sage's blood. Concept breakthrough. In his sea of consciousness, the soul suppression cauldron was incomparably stable. Biluo's voice sounded. Lin Yi endured the pain and slowly felt the holy might, accepting the holy might. Gradually, his entire consciousness merged with the golden world in front of him. The unparalleled saint might, the magical golden world, surrounded Lin Yi, not only his body, but also his consciousness and divine consciousness. 1 day passed. 2 days passed. Lin Yi did not move at all. His whole person was like an eternally unchanging statue. The 3rd day, Lin Yi opened his eyes. In his eyes, the pain was still there. However, in the pain in his eyes, there was a hint of excitement. Because he had truly felt the rule in the saint might, and saw the evolution of the golden world's rule. In his body there was a magical change. Blade will, great perfection. Fist will, great perfection. Sword will, great perfection. Moreover, at this moment, there was an additional rule of gold in his body. This was the result of refining the blood of a metal-type great sage. He now had a metal-type domain, a domain that surpassed the domain of will. Even though it was only a weak metal-type domain, its power was tens of thousands of times greater than a domain of will of great perfection. In other words, there was no comparison between the two. It was like comparing soil to gold. No matter how much soil there was, it was not as precious as gold. Saint might, supreme saint might. Domain, supreme domain. So, it's all like this. The corners of Lin Ye's mouth twitched as he muttered to himself. In his mind there was an epiphany. In an instant, he understood what saint might and domain were, and he understood the gap between the concept and the domain. In his heart, his yearning and desire for the domain reached the extreme. Boom! The moment Lin Yi understood the rule of gold domain, the blood of the great sage suspended in front of him turned into a light curtain and descended on Lin Yi. It completely merged with Lin Yi and finally disappeared. The blood of the great sage disappeared, and the supreme saint might calm down. Just like before, although it was crushing Lin Yi, it was not targeted. A miracle. In the sea of consciousness, Biluo's voice sounded. That voice was filled with shock and curiosity. Lin Yi could hear from her voice that this ending was beyond Biluo's expectations. He immediately understood that Biluo used him as a lab rat, and a very dangerous one at that. But the ending was a success. The harvest was beyond his expectations. What's wrong? What's your biggest expectation? Lin Yi communicated with Biluo. His tone was a little unhappy. Of course, he also knew that refining the blood of the great sage was dangerous. Biluo had also warned him. He couldn't blame Biluo. After all, Biluo was doing it for their own good. It could make him stronger. It was beyond his expectations. It was just an accident, that was all. My greatest expectation. That is, your artistic conception has reached 100%. To be able to adapt to the blood of the great sage of gold. What I never expected was that you actually have a gold domain and have completely merged with the blood of the great sage of gold. I'm really curious. What kind of existence were you in your previous life? A mere divine master can't be so heaven-defying. According to my expectations, you have to at least reach the semi-saint realm to be able to completely merge with the blood of the great sage of gold. Now it seems that you can completely merge with the 9 drops of the blood of the great sage in the celestial realm, haha. Biluo's voice was extremely excited. It was as if it was her who had merged with the blood of the great sage and not Lin Yi. Chapter 198. How much time has passed? Lin Yi listened to Biluo's words. He was speechless. It was simply indescribable. The difference between what he expected and the outcome was too big. Moreover, Biluo said that he was a mere divine master. If a divine master was a mere divine master, then what was considered powerful? Could it be that Biluo was much more powerful than a divine master in the past? 4 days have passed. You have 1 more day to cultivate. Biluo's voice sounded again. After that, she didn't have any intention to speak again. Lin Yi pondered for a moment. 1 more day, which meant that he had cultivated in the saint's tomb for 4 days. He had 1 more day to cultivate, and then he would have to leave the saint's tomb and head to Heavenly Cloud City. Calm down. He began to cultivate. Inside the saint's tomb, cultivation realms were in vain. It was full of saint's aura. Those who came here to cultivate were all strengthening their aura and resistance, improving their artistic conception, and comprehending the changes in the saint's aura. Other than those reclusive families and super sects, no other experts dared to think about using saint's aura to cultivate. This was the advantage of a big family. As a disciple of a big family, there were some cultivation resources that couldn't be exchanged with spirit stones and treasures. 1 day passed. Lin Yi left the saint's tomb. When he walked out of the saint's tomb, Huang Tianxiao and Chu Yunyan also walked out. Both of them had happy smiles on their faces. Needless to say, they had gained a lot in the saint's tomb. Junior brother Lin. Junior brother Lin. When they saw Lin Yi come out, Huang Tianxiao and Chu Yunyan both greeted him. All 3 of them were peerless geniuses. Huang Tianxiao and Chu Yunyan were older than Lin Yi, so it wasn't too much to call Lin Yi junior brother. At their level, they didn't care about the title anymore. What they cared about was actual respect. Moreover, there was a big gap between the 2 of them and Lin Yi in terms of real strength. Naturally, the 2 of them called Lin Yi because they didn't underestimate Lin Yi. It seems, senior sister and senior brother have gained quite a lot, Lin Yi said with a smile. In terms of gains, no one could compare to him. There was no need to mention this point. I got some. Junior brother Lin has already reached the 8th level of the Fate Realm. Chu Yunyan's beautiful eyes swept over Lin Yi, and a look of surprise appeared on her beautiful face. 20 days ago, Lin Yi was only at the 5th level of the creation realm. Who would have thought that after 20 days, Lin Yi would actually reach the 8th level of the creation realm? Even though there was a huge gap between the blessed realm and the celestial realm, that was the gap between ordinary experts and geniuses. For Lin Yi, the gap was not that big. At the 5th tier of the Fate Realm, he was able to kill eldest senior brother, who was at the Heaven Realm. Now that he had reached the 8th level of the Creation Realm, he really did not know how powerful he was. I cultivated in the land of Saint Spirit for a period of time. Lin Yi smiled. He wasn't surprised that Chu Yunyan could see through his cultivation base. He knew that in this world there were many people with magical talent. It was not difficult for them to see through his cultivation level. 20 days are up. You have 2 hours to prepare. Gather in the Saint Spirit Square in 2 hours. There was a slight fluctuation in the space. Then, a figure appeared in front of the three. The person who appeared was naturally the sect master, a half-saint expert. Yes. Lin Yi and the other two bowed and nodded. Then, they left the saint tomb and headed outside. 2 hours later, Lin Yi appeared in the Saint Spirit Square with Silent Soul. Luo Xing Luo Ling Luo Bingyue, and Ling Shi were all cultivating. Lin Yi did not disturb their cultivation. Moreover, he did not want them to send him off. Anyway, the Heavenly Cloud City was not far from the Saint Spirit Heaven sect. Even if they went to the Heavenly Cloud City, it would only take them 10 days to half a month. Junior brother, you are such a playboy. Huang Tianxiao saw Lin Yi with Silent Soul and was envious. Solitary Spirit was an innately perfect beauty. Her purity and charm combined into one. Even the 10 goddesses of the Holy Spirit Heavenly Sect paled in comparison to her. No man would not be moved by her. Even women would be moved. However, he knew that this woman was Lin Ye's woman. If he dared to touch Silent Soul, he would be courting death. Senior brother, you must be joking. Lin Yi smiled. He did not say much. Instead, he saw Chu Yunyan's envious face. Chu Yunyan, the peerless genius of the Saint Spirit Heaven sect, was known as one of the 10 goddesses. She was talented and beautiful, but in front of Silent Soul, she felt pressured. It was not that she was not as beautiful as Silent Soul. It was that Silent Soul's temperament was naturally seductive and pure. This was something that no other woman could compare to. They are going to the Heavenly Cloud City. Be careful. If anything happens, even this sect won't be able to protect you. The sect master said. The Saint Spirit Heaven sect was not like the Heavenly Cloud City. That place was the capital of the Cloud Sky Kingdom. The strongest and most powerful cultivators of the Cloud Sky Kingdom gathered there. Perhaps a genius from there would be a disciple from a super family or super sect. Moreover, the most powerful cultivators of the Cloud Sky Kingdom would attend the royal banquet. These cultivators were not weaker than the Saint Spirit Heaven sect. Some were even stronger. Sect Master is going to the Heavenly Cloud City too? Hearing the Sect Master's words, the 3 of them were shocked. Because the Sect Master was going to the Heavenly Cloud City too. Could it be for the royal banquet? Yes. The Sect Master nodded. This time, he would lead the 3 of them to attend the royal banquet. Then, he led the 4 of them into the teleportation array. The teleportation array was a short-distance teleportation. Soon, the 5 of them left the teleportation array and appeared in the wilderness. This is? Huang Tianxiao was confused. This is 10,000 miles away from the Saint Spirit Heaven sect. Now we will fly to the Heavenly Cloud City, the sect master said. In a flash, they flew toward the sky. Seeing this, Chu Yunyan and Huang Tianxiao did not dare to relax and quickly caught up. Lin Yi reached out and pulled Silent Soul, flying toward the sky as well. In terms of speed, Lin Yi had the wings of space. Even a sky realm cultivator would be a far cry from him. The 2 of them were not on the same level. However, compared to the sect master, who was a half-saint, he was far behind. This was because a half-saint had mastered a realm. Although the realm was not strong, even if it was just a trace of it, it was not something a human could compare to. Most importantly, a half-saint's comprehension of the heavens and the earth was unimaginable to others. Whoosh whoosh, whoosh whoosh in the air, Lin Yi flew quickly with Silent Soul. Peak Level 8 Creation Realm. Without a doubt, his cultivation was the lowest among them. However, his speed was faster than Huang Tianxiao and Chu Yunyan. Of course, the sect master did not show his fastest speed. Instead, He controlled his speed to the limit of Lin Yi and the rest. Chapter 199. Heavenly Cloud City. One of the 8 imperial cities of the Tianmu territory. This was the capital of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom. It was said that the Heavenly Cloud City had existed since the primordial era. The river of time had made the Heavenly Cloud City even more ancient. It was as majestic as a mountain, and the tall city walls gave off an ancient aura. It made people feel that the Cloudy Sky Kingdom was strong and safe. The primordial imperial city that was 5,000 miles long and 8,000 miles wide. But every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. To be able to live in the Heavenly Cloud City, one must either be from a super family, a super sect, a super elite, or a super genius. Normal geniuses and elites would not be able to survive in the Heavenly Cloud City. Boom! Boom! Outside the city, on the wide road, a giant beast was pulling a giant chariot. On the chariot stood a young man with a tall bun. He was wearing a white shirt and his hair was combed neatly. Wulong eyebrows, phoenix eyes. He had a faint smile on his face, making him look cool and elegant. Next to the young man were 2 beautiful women on his left and right. The women had light veils covering their bodies, making them look very charming. His face and temperament were enough to make all the women in the world fall for him. Young Master Nan Yang. It's young Master Nan Yang. Young Master Nan Yang. Beast, chariot, and young man. His aura was so powerful that all the elites that passed by looked at him. When they saw the young man, many of the elites recognized him. This young man was one of the most talented people in the Cloudy Sky Kingdom, young Master Nan Yang. He was as famous as the first prince. The reason why he appeared in the Heavenly Cloud City was because of the royal feast. Crack! In the void, in the blue sky. A crack was torn open in a strange manner. A young man in black walked out from the crack. The young man had a horrifying bloody aura around him. The bloody aura that filled the sky made people feel dizzy. His eyes were cold and evil, just like a demon. Many of the elites felt fear when they saw the young man in black. Even those super elites that had lived for 100 or 200 years would feel fear in front of this young man in black. Young Master Nan Yang on the chariot looked into the sky. Demon blood, you dare to come? Young Master Nan Yang looked at the young man in black in the sky, and a powerful battle intent exploded from him. The space kept trembling as the wind blew. Dust was blown away. It was like the end of the world. Nan Yang, the royal feast. It's none of your business. The black-clothed youth in the air was actually one of the most monstrous experts in the Cloud Sky Kingdom, young Master Demon Blood. It was said that young noble demonic blood possessed demonic blood. His cultivation improved by leaps and bounds, and his strength was terrifying to the extreme. Even the first prince and the others did not dare to offend him. Ha ha! Ha ha! In the sky, a bold and hearty laugh resounded. That voice was like saber intent. A hole was torn in the space. A young man wearing a gray robe and carrying a gigantic blade appeared in the sky near the Cloud King City. The young man's eyes were as sharp as knives. The unparalleled saber will seem to be able to split the heavens and the earth. Killing blade, Lai Tenyu. With one slash, heaven and earth will be destroyed. Invincible amongst those of the same level. Who would have thought that a few of the most monstrous cultivators would appear at the same time? This time, the royal banquet will be interesting to watch. I wonder who will have the last laugh and become the biggest winner. No matter who becomes the winner, it has nothing to do with anyone else, haha. The monstrous experts of the Cloudy Sky Kingdom had arrived. Many powerful cultivators gathered outside the imperial city. In an instant, hundreds of powerful cultivators were watching from afar. They did not dare to get close to the monstrous experts because to them, others were no different than ants. If they were an eyesore, they would teach them a lesson or even wipe them out. Whoosh whoosh, whoosh whoosh. In less than 10 breaths of time after Killing Blade appeared, There was a whooshing sound in the sky as the sword intent rained down. In the blink of an eye, awe-inspiring sword intent filled the entire area. They could feel the sword intent. They knew who it was. In the Cloud Kingdom, only the Shui Jiao of the Shui Sword Moon Country could reach such a level. Besides, only the Shui Jiao of the Shui Jiao had the guts to show up in front of so many monstrous cultivators. As expected, in the sky, there was a boundless source of sword intent. A young man in a blood-red robe stood proudly in the sky. It was as if he was the ruler of the entire world. Wherever he looked, everything in the world would be imprisoned. Many powerful cultivators felt their minds trembling, their hearts racing, and their faces pale. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. When the 4 monstrous experts appeared, there were several powerful auras in the sky. No, it was Saint's aura. It was Saint's aura, unparalleled Saint's aura. The Saint's aura crushed the world. Outside the Imperial City, all the powerful cultivators half knelt. The Saint's aura made it so that no one could even raise their heads. 8 middle-aged men with great sage's aura appeared in the sky. 2 of the 8 middle-aged men stood together, forming 4 groups. Needless to say, these 8 were from the Bloodsword Moon. They were here to send these powerful cultivators to the Imperial family's banquet. They were escorted by a half-saint. That was enough to show the status of these powerful cultivators in their factions and forces. Greetings, Lord Saint. Greetings, Lord Saint. Outside the Imperial City, all of the experts bowed respectfully. This was the respect that mortal cultivators had for the Saint. The Saints were above everything. The Saints were no longer mortals. Their lifespan was more than 200 years that of mortal cultivators. If one could not become a saint, everything would be in vain. In the end, they would still be a cup of dust. A short lifespan of 200 years was definitely a painful thing for those who had reached the pinnacle of martial arts. 8 half-saints. They directly ignored the martial arts cultivators on the ground. To them, no matter how strong a martial arts cultivator was, they were no different from ants. A cold snort. 8 half-saints led 4 monstrous experts into the Imperial City. Outside the city, countless powerful cultivators did not feel any disgust or dissatisfaction towards the half-saint. It was as if it was a matter of course. In fact, all the powerful cultivators had a look of respect in their eyes. They watched as the 4 monstrous experts and 8 half-saints entered the Imperial City. 4 monstrous experts entered the city. Then, more monstrous experts from the Cloud Sky Kingdom appeared. They were all monstrous experts at the pinnacle of the Cloud Sky Kingdom. Of course, compared to the Blood Sword Moon's prodigies, their reputation was slightly inferior. But if they really fought, it was hard to say who would win. Whoosh, whoosh. 5 figures appeared in the sky. A middle-aged man, 2 beautiful women, and 2 young men. Among the 5, the middle-aged man was the most powerful. He was a half-saint. Of the other 4, the youngest young man and the woman had the lowest cultivation. They were only in the creation realm. The other 2 were in the celestial realm. They were also top monstrous experts in the Cloud Sky Kingdom. But compared to the monstrous experts of other sects and families, they were obviously much weaker. We have arrived at the Cloud Sky Kingdom. Be careful. Bear with it if you can. Even if you can't bear with it, you have to bear with it. The middle-aged half-saint stood in the sky and looked at the towering city wall not far away. His face was filled with yearning and anticipation. But the anticipation disappeared in a flash. Chapter 200. Yes. Hearing the sect leader's words, Huang Tianshao and the others replied. Even if the sect leader didn't remind them, they would still be careful. After all, the Cloud King City wasn't the Saint Soul Heaven sect. Here, they were just slightly stronger and the royal banquet was coming, and the strongest cultivators in the kingdom were gathering. If they were to meet these monsters, it would inevitably cause friction. These monsters were strong and had strong backgrounds. even some of the younger generation hidden in the city. If they offended them, they wouldn't even know how they died. Lin Yi didn't say anything. Bringing Silent Soul with him, he sized up the Cloud King city. Let's go. The sect leader sighed and said. Then they landed. In the Cloud King city, one had to go through the city gate and strictly fly over the city wall. Therefore, they had to land and enter through the city gate. The flowers were like brocade, beautiful and magnificent. It was like a fairyland. This was the first thought that Lin Yi had when he entered the Cloud King city. He didn't expect. This ancient city that had been around for tens of thousands of years was so beautiful. It didn't look like a human city at all. Instead, it looked like a fairyland of the elves. Silent Soul beside him was also surprised by this place. Young master, let's go to a place first. Silent Soul's rosy and seductive little mouth gently moved closer to Lin Ye's ear and whispered. Her breath was like orchids, making Lin Ye's heart tremble. Beautiful face, seductive little mouth, as long as it was someone, they wouldn't be able to control themselves. Okay. Lin Yi used his divine telekinesis. He calmed down without anyone noticing. He sighed in his heart. The nine-tailed celestial fox of the Celestial Fox clan was indeed extraordinary. If it was someone else, they would definitely be mesmerized. He nodded and agreed. Then, he quickly walked forward. He came behind the sect leader and asked for leave. Be careful. The royal banquet is in 7 days. 7 days, don't miss the time. The sect leader glanced at Lin Yi, then looked at Silent Soul and couldn't help but shake his head. But he still let Lin Yi leave. Understood. Lin Yi smiled. He knew that the sect master had misunderstood. She thought he was going to fool around with Silent Soul. It wasn't his fault. He could only blame Silent Soul for being too beautiful and seductive. With such a goddess by his side, no one would believe him if he didn't do something. What's more, this beautiful goddess was completely obedient to Lin Yi. Then, Lin Yi and Silent Soul separated from the sect master and the others. Young master, let's go to the Heavenly Fox clan now. Silent Soul whispered to Lin Yi. There was a sly smile on her small face. He even felt a little smug. Now? Lin Yi was stunned. He thought that Silent Soul had a place to stay in Heavenly Cloud City. He didn't expect Silent Soul to bring him to the Heavenly Fox clan. Yes. Solitary Spirit raised his head, his little face looking at Lin Yi as he opened his mouth to answer. There was a trace of nervousness on her beautiful face. She was worried that Lin Yi would scold her. How long will it take? Lin Yi's face was calm without any change in expression. He just wanted to know how long it would take. As long as it didn't affect the royal banquet, it didn't matter if he went to the Heavenly Fox clan. 3 days is enough. Silent Soul said happily. She had been with Lin Yi for a long time and knew about Lin Yi's personality. Seeing Lin Yi like this, she knew that he agreed to her request. Let's go. Lin Yi said without hesitation. 3 days was enough. Silent Soul nodded and led Lin Yi to the north of the royal city. A full 2 hours later, the two came to a secluded place. Although it was secluded, there were fewer people here compared to the royal city square. However, there were still people passing by here from time to time. Silent Soul stopped in her tracks. Lin Yi scanned with his inner sight, monitoring everything within a 30-mile radius. Gongzi, please protect me. Silent Soul's sweet voice sounded. Then, she sat cross-legged. Her slender, jade-like hands waved in the air, and a series of mysterious and obscure techniques were unleashed. There was a slight fluctuation in the air. Gradually, Silent Soul became like a fox spirit. In front of her, there were waves of light ripples. The light ripples swallowed the surrounding spirit energy. As the spirit energy surged, the light ripples became stronger and more dazzling. Charm, holiness. At this moment, Silent Soul's aura was mesmerizing. Holiness and charm merged into one. She was a natural beauty. Hiss! In a moment, The light ripples in front of Silent Soul formed a gate of time and space. Silent Soul sacrificed a drop of blood. The blood flew towards the gate of time and space. Suddenly, the gate of time and space exploded with a mysterious aura. Gongzi, let's go. While Lin Yi was still in shock, Silent Soul's sweet and seductive voice sounded. Her slender, jade-like hands pulled Lin Yi along as they flashed towards the gate of time and space. In an instant, the two of them disappeared into the gate of time and space. The moment they entered the gate of time and space, the gate of time and space mysteriously disappeared. It really is you. After Lin Yi and Silent Soul disappeared into the gate of time and space, a peerless figure appeared out of thin air. The woman's beauty was unparalleled. Her temperament was otherworldly. She was wearing an aqua blue dress. She had a tall and slender figure, a beautiful face, and fair skin. She was like a goddess from the 9 heavens. She had an otherworldly temperament that kept people at a distance. Looking at the direction where Lin Yi and Silent Soul disappeared, the woman said coldly. Her tone was cold to the extreme. However, there was a blood-red lotus mark in between her eyebrows, making her look even more demonic. Demonic, holy, and cold. Fused together. If Lin Yi saw this beautiful woman, he would definitely recognize her. She was the eldest senior sister of the Heavenly Sea sect, Nangong Xie. She had disappeared before the great battle between the Heavenly Sea realm and the demon sect. Who would have thought that Nangong Xie would appear in the Heavenly Cloud Imperial City? Moreover, her temperament was even more otherworldly than before. There was also a hint of demonic, indescribable demonic. Why are you looking for my little junior brother? Nangong Xie's beautiful face fluctuated with emotions. She was talking to herself. It was like she was talking to the air or talking to herself. Her tone was completely different from before. Or it could be said that her previous tone was completely different from her current tone. However, it was from the same person. You are just my clone, Qin Wentian said coldly. You don't need to know why I am looking for him for now. That cold voice sounded from Nangong Xie's mouth again. This tone was the same as before. So what? Nangong Xie's expression fluctuated again. The reason why her tone was different before and after was because she was not alone. To be precise, the body was hers, but the soul belonged to an outsider. As for that outsider, it was her true body. Her main body had descended and fused with her body. One person had the soul and consciousness of two people. I am only confirming that he is in this world. I am leaving. I hope you don't harm me. Otherwise, I will erase you. Losing a clone is at most a drop of blood essence for me. That's all. He. That cold voice was incomparably demonic. As the voice fell, the space around Nangong Xie fluctuated strangely. Chapter 201. Sigh. Nangong Xie activated her divine sense. She relaxed her eyebrows and confirmed that the original body had left. During this time, she was in shock. She didn't expect that she was just a clone of someone else. Now that the original body had descended and overlapped with her soul, she didn't even resist. Although she didn't know how powerful the original body was, she knew that the original body's power had long exceeded her imagination. Now the original body's soul had left. However, her cultivation and strength did not weaken. Compared to when she was in the Tianhai sect, she was now many times stronger. Who is junior brother? Nangong Xie looked in the direction where Lin Yi disappeared. She muttered to herself. Then, her jade-like feet moved lightly, and she stepped into the air. She was like a goddess from the 9th heaven. Whoosh! In the space-time gate, time and space reversed. After about 10 breaths, Lin Yi and Silent Soul were sent flying by a magical force. Instinctively, they used their body techniques to disperse the force. In an instant, light appeared. The two appeared on an empty land. The ground was fragrant, and the spirit chi was so rich that it almost materialized, forming a faint spirit mist. The surrounding environment was extremely beautiful. Young master, this is the Heavenly Fox clan, Silent Soul said happily. There was a smile on her beautiful little face. She was extremely relaxed, as if she had returned home. This is an independent small world. Lin Yi looked around. He said. He had already guessed that this should be an independent world, at least not in the heavenly purification territory. Yes. It is indeed a small world. In fact, on the divine land, except for the human race and a few large races, the other small races are in their own small world. Only ordinary people are on the divine land. However, there are 2 small worlds in the Heavenly Fox clan. This is the first small world connected to the divine land. There is another small world in this small world. Silent Soul had a proud look on his face. Although the Heavenly Fox clan didn't have many members, they weren't weak. Even among the Giggle tribe, the Heavenly Fox clan was considered one of the strongest. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, as soon as the 2 of them entered the small world of the Heavenly Fox clan, several figures appeared in front of the 2 of them in just 20 breaths of time. There were a total of 6 people. Each of them exuded a terrifying and powerful aura. He stopped about 100 meters away from Lin Yi and Lin Fan. Your Highness, it's the little princess. Seeing Lin Yi, the terrifying experts' faces turned solemn. But when they saw Silent Soul, they were shocked. However, they didn't let down their guard just because of Silent Soul's appearance. Instead, they became even more vigilant. Why would the princess bring a human into the Celestial Fox clan's small world? Elder Ling Xiu. Grand Elder. Elder Yun Xiu. When Silent Soul saw the 6 elders, her beautiful face was filled with joy. He opened his mouth and greeted them one by one, as if he was seeing his family. As he greeted them, he quickly ran towards the 6 old men. Your Highness! Why did you bring back a human? Grand Elder sized up Silent Soul. After making sure that Silent Soul was fine, he was relieved. He thought that Silent Soul was kidnapped by the young human to come to the small world. But now, it seemed that things weren't as he imagined. Otherwise, the young human wouldn't have let Silent Soul free. Grand Elder. He is the one I chose. Silent Soul turned around and looked at Lin Yi. Your Highness, you are too willful. The Grand Cultivator Elder was at a loss for words. He didn't think that the princess would be so willful to choose an ordinary human. He couldn't help but feel angry. Other things were fine, but this matter was related to the future of the Heavenly Fox clan. How could he let the princess do whatever she wanted? No, he had to stop her. Your Highness, do you know that other than your sisters there are other clans that will appear? If you chose a good helper, there might be some hope. But now, you chose an ordinary human. Elder Ling Xiu sighed and said with a heavy heart. This time, it was especially important for the Heavenly Fox clan. All their hopes were placed on the little princess, but now it seemed that the little princess was too willful and would definitely ruin things. Elders, please rest assured. For the Heavenly Fox clan, I know what to do. Silent Soul said. Her beautiful little face was full of seriousness. As she spoke, she returned to Lin Ye's side and gathered her courage to hold Lin Ye's arm. Her little face blushed and her delicate body trembled. She quietly looked at Lin Yi. Seeing that Lin Yi wasn't angry, she was slightly relieved. Well, you go back to the palace first. Go to the altar tomorrow on time. Grand Elder could only sigh and shake his head. At this moment, there was no other way. The only thing he hoped for was that there wouldn't be any trouble. After saying that, the elders' figures flashed and disappeared into the horizon. They are the elders of the Heavenly Fox clan. After the elders left, Yi Zichen said. Lin Yi said to Silent Soul. He was curious and didn't know what happened to the Heavenly Fox clan. Silent Soul didn't tell him either. It seemed that Silent Soul brought him back to the Heavenly Fox clan for something. Yes. These elders have been guarding the small world's teleportation array. As long as someone enters this small world, they will be the first to know. They were also the first to find out about our arrival, so they came to check. Young master, there are some things that we can talk about when we return to the palace, okay? Silent Soul said. She didn't want to let go of Lin Ye's arm. She raised her little face and looked at Lin Yi. She knew that Lin Yi had a lot of things waiting for her to explain. Lin Yi nodded. Then, the two flew towards the sky. In less than a quarter of an hour, a palace appeared in their sight. The palace was located in the sunset. At a glance, it was a beautiful paradise. It was quiet, peaceful, and could calm one's heart. Silent Soul didn't stop and brought Lin Yi to one of the palaces. Along the way, they met many elites of the Heavenly Fox clan. The Heavenly Fox clan, once they reached a certain level of cultivation, could transform into a human form. Those that didn't transform into a human form were little foxes. They were very beautiful. Soon, Lin Yi and Silent Soul arrived in front of a palace. Ice Spirit Palace. The palace was quiet and beautiful. Spirit energy lingered around. Chi, a finger force, flew out from solitary spirit and landed on the palace door. Suddenly, ripples appeared on the palace door. Then, the palace door opened. Young master. This is the palace Silent Soul lives in. Silent Soul said. There was a slight blush on her beautiful face. Chapter 202. Not bad, the environment is not bad. Just like the Sky Palace. Lin Yi entered the palace, looked around, and said. The palace wasn't big, but it was beautiful and quiet, suitable for cultivation. From the location and environment of the palace, one could see Silent Soul's position in the Celestial Fox clan. Gongzi. Let me tell you about the Celestial Fox clan. Silent Soul waited for Lin Yi to finish looking around. She led Lin Yi to the pavilion in the palace and made tea for Lin Yi. After everything was done, she said to Lin Yi. When she spoke, there was a hint of nervousness. Although this was the Celestial Fox clan, she was still worried that Lin Yi would be angry. After all, she was suspected of lying to Lin Yi. At the same time, she felt guilty, and her beautiful face showed some uneasiness. Say it. Lin Yi nodded. He waited for Silent Soul to explain. He hated people lying to him, but he wouldn't not give Silent Soul a chance to explain. Moreover, everyone had their own secrets, and so did he. Silent Soul must have her own reasons for hiding it from him. It wasn't too late to say it now. Most importantly, Silent Soul didn't betray him. The Celestial Fox clan has a total of 8 princesses. I am the youngest princess. Other than the princesses of the Celestial Fox clan, there are other clans that will appear. Every 100 years, the Celestial Fox clan will choose a saintess to enter the Celestial Fox Holy Palace and accept the inheritance. However, every princess needs someone to protect and help her in order to succeed. My 7 elder sisters all have a heaven-defying protector. Silent Soul said in a low voice. As she spoke, she secretly looked at Lin Yi to see if Lin Yi was angry. To her disappointment, Lin Ye's expression didn't change at all. Leave the Celestial Fox clan. Just to find someone to protect you. I'm your target? Lin Yi listened to Silent Soul. He sat up straight and looked at Silent Soul. He asked unhurriedly. Lin Ye's tone was calm, but in Silent Soul's ears, her delicate body couldn't help but tremble, not daring to look at him in the eye. Young master is right. Sorry Gongzi, it's Silent Soul's fault. Silent Soul really does want Gongzi to help me once. Silent Soul gathered her courage and looked at Lin Yi with her seductive eyes. He said in a low voice. You very good. Lin Yi stood up, and the aura around him was extremely cold. He reached out and hooked Silent Soul's chin. He said indifferently. With that, he turned around and walked towards a room in the palace, leaving Silent Soul alone in the pavilion, not knowing what to do. His whole body was sluggish, as if his soul had been sucked away. Silent Soul didn't react until Lin Yi entered the room. 2 strings of sparkling and translucent tears rolled down her beautiful little face. The Saintess selection was a grand event that happened once in 100 years for the Heavenly Fox clan. Every 100 years, the Heavenly Fox clan would select a new Saintess. The Saintess could receive the inheritance of the Heavenly Fox clan, enter the Heavenly Fox temple, and even go to the Heavenly Fox clan's sacred ground. But countless years had passed. No Saintess of the Heavenly Fox clan could enter the sacred ground. As for why, only the Saintess who went to the sacred ground knew. This year's Saintess selection, there were a total of 8 princesses. Early in the morning, Silent Soul got up and looked at the room. He saw that the door was tightly shut, without any movement. After a while, Silent Soul left the palace. He walked out of the palace, because today was the day of the Saintess selection. Even if she didn't have anyone to help her, as the princess of the Heavenly Fox clan, she had to attend this grand event. She knew that without Lin Yi's help, she wouldn't have a chance. Sacred ground. In the heart of the Heavenly Fox clan, a huge, ancient altar stood there. At this moment, countless powerhouses of the Heavenly Fox clan had arrived. Thousands of people were not enough to make the place lively. In addition to the powerhouses of the Heavenly Fox clan, there were also powerhouses and prodigies of other clans. Around the altar there were many tall seats. They were already filled with terrifying powerhouses. There were heavenly foxes. There were half-dragons. There were also elves. There were also dwarfs. There were even giants. It was said that powerhouses and prodigies of 10 clans came to watch this grand ceremony of the Heavenly Fox clan. Of course, some of them were protectors invited by the princess of the Heavenly Fox clan. Her Highness the First Princess has arrived. Her Highness the Second Princess has arrived. Her Highness the Third Princess has arrived. In the midst of the heated discussion, the 7 princesses entered the altar one by one. Every princess was peerlessly beautiful and seductive, causing the hearts of countless experts to race. Every princess had 1 or 2 monstrous powerhouses beside her. Needless to say, these people were the protectors of the princess, and their strength was terrifying to the extreme. The 7 princesses took their seat. The monstrous powerhouses beside them also sat beside them. They were guests and friends of the princesses, and also guests of the Heavenly Fox clan. Without exception, the protectors of the 7 princesses were all outsiders. Because the Heavenly Fox clan was naturally weak in strength. The women were all monstrous. The men were always inferior to the women. In a moment, all 7 princesses had arrived. Only the youngest princess had not arrived yet. Little 8 is really putting on airs. She made us, her elder sisters, wait for her for so long. Did she abstain? It should be so. Little 8's cultivation is very low, and the person she chose is definitely not too strong. Instead of making a fool of herself, it's better to give up this time. It is said that someone saw Little 8 bring back a human youth. In the seats beside the altar, several princesses were whispering softly. Their guests and friends were also curious and amused when they heard the discussion of the princesses. No matter where it was, wherever there were people, it was Jianghu. In the Heavenly Fox clan, it was normal for the princesses to compete with each other for their own interests. Supreme Elder! Supreme Elder! Just as the princesses were talking, 9 white-haired elders appeared in the sky above the altar of the Heavenly Fox clan. The elders exuded a powerful aura. Saint Aura. Yes, it was Saint Aura. These 9 elders were all genuine saints. They were many times stronger than half-saints. They were the pillars of the Heavenly Fox clan. They only appeared in grand events that happened once in 100 years. At other times, they were in seclusion to cultivate, striving for higher achievements, and guarding the entire Heavenly Fox clan. It was also because of the existence of the 9 elders that other clans did not dare to lightly offend the Heavenly Fox clan. The appearance of the 9 supreme elders. All the powerhouses of the Heavenly Fox clan bowed to pay their respects. The 7 princesses were no exception. In fact, even the Supreme Cultivator Elder and the others bowed to the 9 Supreme Elders. Although the Supreme Elder and the others were also elders, compared to the 9 Supreme Elders, they were a far cry. Chapter 203. The 9 Great Elders nodded slightly. The one in the lead made a shushing gesture. Suddenly, the powerhouses around the holy altar quieted down. Then, the 9 Great Elders were distributed around the holy altar, each guarding one side. They sat cross-legged, motionless like statues. Their appearance was to guard the scene of the ceremony. "Hey, isn't that little 8? Her Highness the little princess is alone. Does the little princess have no protectors? She probably won't participate in the Saintess selection. Didn't she bring back a human youth yesterday? Looking at her, she doesn't seem to be in a good mood. Her Highness the little princess." Around the holy altar, because of the presence of the 9 Great Elders, the hubbub became much quieter. At this time, someone saw a beautiful woman walking over. Seeing this woman, they all recognized her. This was the little princess of the Celestial Fox clan. However, the little princess was alone. She did not have any attendants or protectors. Not only did the powerhouses of the Celestial Fox clan and other clans see her, but the 7 princesses who came first also saw the arrival of the little princess. When they saw the little princess, they couldn't help but discuss. Silent Soul. Yes, it was Silent Soul. She was also the little princess of the Celestial Fox clan. She was the youngest princess. In terms of appearance, Silent Soul was without a doubt the first. In terms of temperament, Silent Soul was without a doubt the first. In terms of talent, Silent Soul was without a doubt the first. However, she was much younger than her 7 sisters. She didn't cultivate for long and was only in the manifestation realm. Compared to her 7 sisters who were in the celestial realm, the difference was huge. Moreover, with her current cultivation strength, she didn't have the slightest chance. What's more, Silent Soul appeared alone, without any protectors. "Little 8, why did you come alone? Didn't you bring a protector?" At this time, the 5th princess, Gu, who was sitting in a seat around the holy altar, asked. On her face, there was a faint smile. It sounded like she was concerned about Ji Ling, but everyone could tell that the 5th princess, Gu, was obviously laughing at her younger sister. "Thank you for your concern, 5th sister." A smile appeared on Solitary Spirit's face. He walked toward his seat. It was not until this moment that all 8 princesses of the Heavenly Fox clan were present. However, no matter how he looked at it, it was awkward. The other princesses all had 1 or 2 guests or protectors by their side. Only the little Princess Silent Soul didn't have anyone by her side, giving off a feeling of loneliness. Ling, at this moment, a burly young man walked in front of Silent Soul. With a confident smile on his face, he called out, "What are you doing here?" Silent Soul frowned when he saw the young man. He asked, "Of course it's to help you." "What? Do you have a choice now?" The smile on the young man's face grew wider. That pair of eyes scanned Solitary Spirit's body, causing Solitary Spirit to feel disgusted. However, he couldn't get angry at this moment. Moreover, the young man had a strong background. Even the Heavenly Fox race wouldn't dare to offend him. He was one of the Half-Dragon clan's prodigies, Long Yunting. Long Yunting had been pursuing Silent Soul, but Silent Soul didn't agree and had been avoiding him. She didn't expect to meet Long Yunting when she returned to the Celestial Fox clan. "You don't have to choose." Silent Soul's tone was cold. She was in a bad mood. If it wasn't for the Half-Dragon clan, she would have been angry. "Little 8, young Master Long is a prodigy of the Half-Dragon clan. Young Master Long helping you is a great blessing for you," 5th Princess Jiyu said. The smile on her face became even more solid. In her opinion, even if Long Yunting helped Silent Soul, Silent Soul still didn't have a chance. Although Long Yunting had reached the celestial realm, he was still a far cry from her protectors. Among the 8 princesses, except for Silent Soul. As for the other princesses, the protectors around them were all monstrous celestial realm experts. Their cultivation levels were very high and their strength was very terrifying. How about it? Have you thought about it? Long Yunting smiled and looked at Silent Soul. In his mind, he had been fantasizing about getting Silent Soul. If he could get this perfect woman, it would be worth it even if he lost a few decades of his life. Moreover, with Silent Soul's talent, if the two were to be together, both the Half-Dragon clan and the Celestial Fox clan would be his. One person controlling 2 major clans, just thinking about it made him excited. Even if I'm thinking about it, it won't be you. When Long Yunting's words fell, Silent Soul's face turned ugly. Before she could speak, a familiar voice sounded. Hearing this voice, Silent Soul's beautiful face showed a happy expression. However, in Long Yunting's ears, it was extremely harsh and his face was burning. In public, someone dared to ridicule him. Long Yunting, they were looking for death. The other princesses and the prodigies near the altar were also curious. Their eyes looked in the direction of the voice. They saw a young man strolling over. Not bad. It was a young man. A human young man. The young man looked ordinary, like a human scholar, completely different from a prodigy or a prodigy. The words just now came from this young man. Who are you? Long Yunting looked at Lin Yi approaching and asked. His tone was stiff and cold. If looks could kill, Lin Yi would have died countless times. Who am I? I don't need to repay you. Go away, go back to your Half-Dragon clan. Lin Yi walked to Silent Soul's side. He reached out and patted Silent Soul's shoulder. His eyes turned to Long Yunting and said coldly. Then he looked at Silent Soul and said lightly, If there's a next time, you should know the consequences. Gongzi. I won't. Silent Soul heard Lin Ye's words and was excited. She didn't expect Lin Yi to appear. She knew that Lin Yi forgave her this time. She didn't dare to hesitate and quickly answered. She looked very happy, like a child who got candy. Her beautiful face was full of smiles, which was pleasing to the eyes. Silent Soul, who is he? Long Yunting's face was ugly. An ordinary human young man dared to be arrogant in front of him. He was looking for death. Seeing Silent Soul's attitude towards Lin Yi made him furious. He wanted to turn Lin Yi into ashes. The other experts, including the 7 princesses and the monstrous experts beside them, were all looking at Lin Yi with curiosity. Most of them were gloating over Lin Ye's misfortune. My protector, said Yi Futian. Silent Soul said. After saying that, she secretly looked at Lin Yi. Seeing that Lin Yi wasn't dissatisfied, she was relieved. Chapter 204. He is the protector of the little princess? The little princess is really capricious. It seems that the little princess is very respectful to that young man. Finding an ordinary human to be her protector is really a disgrace to the Heavenly Fox clan. I really don't understand what the little princess is thinking. Around the altar, there were thousands of strong people. Most of them heard the conversation between Lin Yi and Silent Soul. They knew that Lin Yi was the protector of the little princess Silent Soul. For a moment, countless voices of discussion could be heard. Most of them were looking down on Lin Yi. An ordinary human young man was the protector of the little princess. It was really incomprehensible. Silent Soul, you are too much. Even if you reject me, you don't have to call a piece of trash to disgust me. Long Yunting looked coldly at Lin Yi. He felt extremely disgusted. An ordinary human young man was the protector of Silent Soul. It was too ridiculous. He thought that Silent Soul might be using this young man as a shield. Long Yunting, watch your mouth. You were disrespectful to me, but I can overlook it. But I won't let it go if you disrespect Mr. Lin. Silent Soul, who was originally calm, hearing Long Yunting call Lin Yi a piece of trash, suddenly became anxious like a cat whose tail was stepped on. On her beautiful face, there was a cold expression, and a trace of killing intent surged out. The cultivation of the creation realm was released, and the space was distorted. The strong people present, seeing Silent Soul's movement, couldn't help but be surprised. They didn't think that the little princess of the Heavenly Fox clan would be angry for an ordinary human young man. They really didn't know why such a young man was worthy of the princess' attention. For a moment, all the strong people looked at Lin Yi. Silent Soul. Under everyone's gaze, Lin Yi stretched out a hand and gently patted Silent Soul's shoulder. He signaled her to calm down. This action was very natural. However, in the eyes of the other powerhouses, it became incomparably exciting. After all, Solitary Spirit was the little princess of the Heavenly Fox clan, a goddess of unparalleled beauty. Among the countless races, there was no other woman that could compare to Silent Soul. She was the goddess in the hearts of countless geniuses of other races. She had countless pursuers, but they were all rejected. And yet, this ordinary human youth was so close to Silent Soul. From his actions, it was clear that Silent Soul was his woman. More importantly, not only did Silent Soul not dislike it, he actually enjoyed it. Young master. Silent Soul looked at Lin Yi and suppressed his killing intent. When his gaze landed on Long Yunting, his gaze was ice-cold. One in front and one behind, from her eyes, one could see the position of Long Yunting and Lin Yi in her heart. Brat, you're going to die today. Silent Soul and Lin Yi's movements. It completely infuriated Long Yunting. At this moment, it was obviously impossible to deal with Silent Soul. However, to deal with a human youth, it was still a piece of cake. As he spoke, he threw a punch at Lin Yi. Suddenly, the space was distorted and destroyed. The Half-Dragon clan had monstrous combat power. Long Yunting, who had reached the celestial realm, had the power of a punch that was even more earth-shattering. He wanted to kill Lin Yi with this punch, not giving Lin Yi the slightest chance to survive. Young master, spare his life. Long Yunting's monstrous fist rolled over. His aura locked onto Lin Yi. Everyone knew that Lin Yi would vanish in the next second. Seeing that Lin Yi was about to be killed by Long Yunting's punch, Silent Soul, who was on the side, spoke. As soon as she spoke, all the powerhouses present couldn't help but be stunned. They all thought that Silent Soul was scared silly. Lin Yi was about to vanish. Why did she ask Lin Yi to spare Long Yunting's life? Okay, the death penalty can be avoided. You can't escape punishment, Lin Yi said faintly. His voice was incomparably flat, and his whole person was calm and collected. When his words fell, Long Yunting's destructive punch had already arrived in front of Lin Yi. At this moment, Lin Yi raised his hand and pointed out. The power of the finger stirred the space and collided with the fist light. Gotcha! In an instant, the fist light and the finger force collided, and a cracking sound rang out in the space. The space was shattered. The fist radiance vanished into thin air. The finger force pressed forward and went straight to Long Yunting. Long Yunting's face was filled with shock and despair, but more than that, he didn't believe it. He wanted to dodge and resist, but it was too late. He watched helplessly as the finger force fell on his body like a death god. Puff! His body trembled violently. It was like 100,000 mountains bombarding his body. His body involuntarily flew backward. His whole body, like a kite with a short string, swayed and flew out for 1,000 meters before falling heavily to the ground. The ground trembled violently. Screech around the holy altar. There were more than 30,000 powerhouses. At this moment, all the powerhouses were stunned, their mouths were wide open, and their eyeballs were about to fly out. They couldn't believe what happened in front of them. A demonic powerhouse of the Half-Dragon clan, the existence of the celestial realm. He was defeated by a seemingly ordinary human youth in seconds, and this human youth was only at the 8th level of the creation realm, which was thousands of miles away from the celestial realm. However, this young man at the 8th level of the creation realm defeated Long Yunting, who was in the celestial realm. Courting death. Long Yunting was seriously injured by a blow. He fell to the ground and couldn't get up. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. A middle-aged man of the half-dragon clan in the celestial realm flashed. He crushed toward Lin Yi. This middle-aged half-dragon clan powerhouse, whether in cultivation or strength, was many times higher than Long Yunting. This blow made most of the powerhouses present tremble. However, Lin Yi put his hands behind his back. He had no intention of blocking or dodging at all. With a faint smile on his face, he watched the middle-aged powerhouses attack crush toward him. Humph! Seeing that the middle-aged half-dragon clan powerhouse's attack was about to hit Lin Yi, Elder Supreme, who was standing at the edge of the holy altar, snorted coldly, and an unparalleled pressure crushed toward the middle-aged powerhouse. The overbearing pressure directly suppressed the middle-aged powerhouse. It made the middle-aged powerhouse's attack dissipate in the air. The middle-aged powerhouse stumbled back more than 10 steps before stabilizing his body. Enough, Elder Supreme said faintly. As an elder of the Heavenly Fox clan, he naturally wouldn't let the powerhouses of other clans make trouble in such a grand event. Just now, Long Yunting had been rude. Lin Yi was forced to counterattack, and he even spared Long Yunting's life. It was naturally unreasonable for the half-dragon clan powerhouse to take revenge. Even if they wanted to deal with Lin Yi, they couldn't let them do it in the Heavenly Fox clan. Elder Supreme. Junior, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. On the side of the half-dragon clan, an elder stood up. He said loudly, with a smile on his face. Chapter 205. He defeated Long Yunting in one move. Countless experts were shocked. The princesses of the Heavenly Fox clan were also surprised. They didn't expect that Silent Soul would find such a human genius. It seemed that they had underestimated their sister. However, they didn't think too much about it. No matter how powerful Lin Yi was, he was only in the creation realm. He couldn't affect the Saintess selection at all. Any one of their protectors could easily kill Lin Yi. He is the protector of the little princess. He is a friend of the little princess, so you can't provoke the protector. Elder Taishu said. His tone was calm, but he was full of momentum, showing the demeanor of an elder. Although the Heavenly Fox clan was not as good as the Half-Dragon clan, their overall strength was not weaker than the Half-Dragon clan. In this case, if the Half-Dragon clan was arrogant, they would not be able to raise their heads in front of other clans in the future. Elder Taishio is right. The Half-Dragon clan elder nodded with a smile. But his eyes were full of murderous intent when he looked at Lin Yi. A half-saint was powerful without being angry. Lin Yi felt a strong sense of oppression. But this feeling disappeared because of the elder's eyes. He knew that the elder wanted to kill him, so he might be safe in the Heavenly Fox clan. If he left the Heavenly Fox clan, he might be killed by the half-saint. The Saintess selection begins now. Sacrifice to the Heavenly Fox sacred altar. Elder Taishio walked up to the altar. A magical cane appeared in his hand. The cane exuded an ancient aura. His whole person was solemn. His voice spread over 100 miles with the altar as the center, and all the experts heard it clearly. At the same time, 8 elders walked out from around the altar. The 8 elders surrounded Elder Taishio. In their hands they each held a magical crystal ball. Yes, it was a crystal ball. However, the crystal ball exuded a magical aura, almost the same as the cane in Elder Taishio's hand. The 9 elders formed a magical formation. In an instant, the 9 of them burst out with a mysterious light. Rumble! Rumble! The 9 elders, the cane and crystal ball in their hands, burst out with a magical power. Instantly, everything in the world lost its color. Space distorted. 9 beams of light shot up into the sky from the staff and the crystal ball. At this moment, the entire land was dark. The 9 beams of light became the only source of light in this part of the world. All the cultivators below the celestial realm were unable to withstand the mysterious pressure. They all half knelt down. The expression on his face was extremely ugly. While 9 beams of light shot up into the sky, piercing through the 9 heavens. They met at a height of 10,000 meters. The moment the 9 beams of light fused, the space shattered into pieces. The space fragments scattered in all directions, and strong winds wreaked havoc. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. Beyond the 9th heaven a 9-colored beam of light swooped down. It's an instant is a century. Perhaps there was no gap in time or space. The 9-colored light collided with the fusion point of the 9 rays of light, and space froze. It was completely frozen. Time also stopped at this moment. There was a brief silence. The world returned to normal. What appeared in front of them was a 10,000-meter-tall 9-colored altar. The altar was covered in stairs, and it was unknown how many steps there were. It was a dazzling sight. A 10,000-meter-tall 9-colored sacred altar appeared out of nowhere. It was like a miracle. It was like an illusion. At this moment, the 9 elders had already retreated. In their hands, except for Elder Taishio's staff, the crystal balls in the hands of the other 8 elders had all disappeared and turned into mysterious lights. The crystal balls were bursting with light. It could be said that the sacred altar of the heavenly fox was activated or formed. However, all of this was no longer important. The appearance of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox meant that the saintess selection was about to begin. It was a once-in-a-century event. It began. The rules of the saintess selection are as follows. The protector who helps the princess reach the sacred altar of the heavenly fox and obtains the heart of the saintess will be this year's saintess. As the saintess, she will be able to enter the sacred temple of the heavenly fox and have a chance to enter the sacred place of the heavenly fox clan. She will fake her death on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox, but after she dies, she will be kicked out of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Elder Taishio explained the rules of the selection of the saintess. The 8 princesses and the 8 protectors all heard it loud and clear. Lin Yi did not care about this rule. He understood it very clearly. In other words, if the 8 princesses wanted to become saintesses, they had to obtain the heart of saintess at the top of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Naturally, they would need the help of protectors along the way. According to Grand Cultivator Elder's words, there must be a battle on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. If there was a battle, there would be death. However, on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox, death was not real death, but a kind of fake death. However, after faking his death, they would be kicked out of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox and lose their qualifications. Your Highness, let's go. Ji Lai was a monstrous expert of the giant clan. At Celestial Realm, he had already cultivated to the point of having 5 Chi sons. Furthermore, he had also cultivated his blade will to 10th completion. He had even mastered a domain. Among the 8 princesses, the Grand Princess had Ji Lai as her protector. She had the highest chance of becoming the saintess. More importantly, the first princess had reached the celestial realm, which meant that she was also at the 5 Chi rising sun realm. If the 2 of them joined forces, they would be able to sweep through everything. Whoosh, whoosh. The first princess nodded. Her beautiful body flashed, and she stepped into the air toward the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. However, just as she was about to fly, she was crushed by the horrifying saintly might from the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. She had no chance to fly. If she wanted to fly, she would have to consume several times more energy and true essence. Moreover, she would be crushed by the saintly might. If this continued, she would run out of true essence before she could reach the peak. Not to mention competing with other people in battle. Seeing this, the first princess had to give up flying. Step by step, she skimmed across the sacred altar. In the blink of an eye, the first princess had reached the 500th step. After the first princess stepped onto the sacred altar of the heavenly fox, Ji-Lai followed. The two unleashed their power to resist the saintly might. They quickly skimmed across the steps and headed toward the top of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Let's go! Let's go! Whoosh! 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 Seeing that the first princess and Ji-Lai were one step ahead of them, the other princesses did not dare to hesitate. They quickly unleashed their techniques to resist the saintly might and quickly climbed up. In the blink of an eye, the 7 princesses and 7 protectors quickly passed the 1000th step. At the bottom of the altar, only Silent Soul and Lin Yi did not move. All eyes were on Lin Yi and Silent Soul. They gave up? Seeing that Lin Yi and Silent Soul did not move, countless experts were curious. They could not help but be curious. They thought that Lin Yi and Silent Soul had given up on the saintess selection. Indeed, the other princesses and protectors were all in the heaven realm, with their 5 Qi Qi at full power, while Lin Yi and Solitary Spirit were only in the creation realm. They would only be asking for trouble if they went up. Let's go. Just when everyone thought that Lin Yi and Silent Soul had given up, Lin Yi spoke. He looked at Silent Soul. Chapter 206. Under the gazes of all the experts, Lin Yi came to the front of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. He took a step forward and stepped onto the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. As soon as he stepped onto the sacred altar of the heavenly fox, Lin Ye's body couldn't help but tremble. His expression changed, and he stopped moving forward as if he was imprisoned. This scene was witnessed by all the experts. There was confusion in their eyes. There was also gloating and disdain. He can't do it. He's too weak. I heard that as long as one reaches the creation realm, one can go up to the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. How embarrassing! The experts around the sacred altar, seeing Lin Ye's situation, they couldn't help but discuss. Although their voices weren't loud, countless voices gathered together, causing the entire area around the sacred altar to be in an uproar. Countless eyes were focused on Lin Yi. Young master. Silent Soul walked to Lin Ye's side. He didn't step onto the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Seeing that Lin Yi didn't move, he couldn't help but be curious. He called out softly. However, Lin Yi didn't respond. The expression on his face kept changing. His heart was filled with shock. Because the aura on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox was compatible with the aura of the dragon clan. He cultivated the divine dragon 9 transformations. As soon as he stepped onto the sacred altar of the heavenly fox, the sacred might and aura on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox merged with him. This aura seemed to be joyful. What made him happy was that the sacred altar of the heavenly fox could refine the intent realm and domain. It could even refine the divine will. This discovery shocked and excited him at the same time. Lin Yi turned a deaf ear to the discussions and disdain of the outside world and completely ignored them. Bang! After an unknown period of time, Lin Yi took a step forward. With this step, the sacred might on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox crushed down fiercely, radiating light in all directions. It was incomparably magical. He took a second step. He took a third step. Step by step, he walked toward the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Lin Ye's speed was much slower than that of Her Highness the Princess and her protectors. The princess and her protectors were moving at lightning speed, while Lin Yi was moving at the speed of a turtle. Soon, the distance between Lin Yi and Zhuai Lai, who was the fastest, increased by nearly 2,000 steps. Comprehend the concept. Comprehending divine sense. Lin Yi said to Silent Soul as he walked. After saying that, he entered a state of selflessness. He was completely in a state of cultivation. Yes. When Solitary Spirit heard Lin Ye's words, he could not help being startled. Then, according to Lin Ye's instructions, he did not rush to the top of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Instead, he moved forward steadily. Every step he took was as steady as a rock, without the slightest bit of stagnation. Moreover, she felt that her divine sense was being tempered. His conception had also been miraculously tempered. At this rate, if he could reach the peak of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox, his will and consciousness would definitely improve greatly. Even if she had lost the chance to become the saintess, her gains from the sacred altar of the heavenly fox were immeasurable. For a moment, Lin Yi and Silent Soul, they walked side by side. Step by step, they walked toward the top of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Their speed made countless experts present feel disdain and talk about it endlessly. Time passed by minute by minute. Half an hour. Lin Yi and Solitary Spirit had already reached the 2000th step, while the other princesses and protectors had already reached the 5000th step. The sacred altar of the heavenly fox was 10,000 meters high. There were 9,999 steps. The higher they went, the stronger the saintess, and the greater the pressure they had to bear. At this moment, the 7 princesses and their protectors had already slowed down. Each step required several breaths of time, or even 10 breaths of time. And Lin Yi and Silent Soul, their speed was faster than before. This situation was noticed by some celestial realm expert. They could not help but feel shocked. The little princess and her friend are getting faster and faster. The other princesses and protectors are getting slower and slower. Did they find out something? Lin Yi was very slow from the first step, but he got faster and faster. He should have found some pattern. If this continues, maybe he can really catch up with the others. Some creation realm experts did not notice the situation of Silent Soul and Lin Yi. After all, the difference between the two and the people in front of them was too big. However, some celestial realm experts saw the changes in Lin Yi and Silent Soul. At the beginning of the heavenly Tao, the soul is the foundation. The soul is the sky, the soul is the earth. The soul is the universe, the soul is the universe. The soul returns to one, the 10,000 returns to one. In Silent Soul's mind, Lin Ye's voice sounded. That voice was like the heavenly Tao, ethereal and real. Suddenly, Silent Soul's whole body was enlightened, and a bright light seemed to have appeared in his sea of consciousness. His delicate body trembled. At this moment, his whole body entered a state of selflessness. Divine sense transformed into divine sense, and the divine sense quickly improved. Lin Ye's voice, every word was engraved in her heart. Divine sense, in a short moment, directly reached the 33rd level, countless levels beyond the same level. Lin Yi on the side naturally knew about Silent Soul's situation, and his own divine sense had reached the 51st level. Not bad. It was the 51st level. The 51st level divine sense was incomparably powerful. At this moment, his divine sense was strong enough to match the existence of the celestial realm and the 5 Qi-Yang Peak. If a real battle broke out, he could kill the 5 Qi-Yang Peak powerhouse at the 50th level. Because the divine sense method was invisible and traceless, directly destroying the soul. He did not expect that just as he stepped onto the 2000th level of the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox, his divine sense would be tempered to the 51st level. Moreover, his divine sense was still improving. At this moment, what he cared about the most, it was the improvement of the domain rule. 4 domain rule. He had indeed reached 4 domain rule. The improvement of the gold domain made his strength stronger. 2 hours later, Ji Lai was the first to reach the 6000th level of the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox. At this moment, Lin Yi reached the 3000th level of the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox. 2 hours later, Ji Lai reached the 7000th level of the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox. Lin Yi reached the 5,000th level of the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox. 4 hours later, Ji Lai reached the 8,000th level of the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox. Lin Yi reached the 7,500th level of the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox. The other palace masters and guardians were not far away from Ji Lai. Silent Soul and Lin Yi were not far away from each other. The two were walking side by side, and their speed was getting faster and faster. They became one of the focal points of countless powerhouses. 14 hours later, Ji Lai reached the 9,000th level of the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox. The other princesses and protectors were hundreds of steps behind Ji Lai and Lin Yi and Silent Soul. At this moment they had also reached the 9,000th level. Now there were only 3 people on the 9,000th level. They were Ji Lai, Lin Yi, and Silent Soul. You are allowed to step onto the 9,500th level. If you exceed the 9,500th level, you will die. Lin Ye's voice sounded domineering, which was a sharp contrast to his previous low profile. His voice reached the ears of the princesses and the protectors. It also reached the ears of all the powerhouses present. Suddenly, all the powerhouses were shocked. This was too domineering. But, so what? That was his strength. He was qualified to say such words. For a moment, the faces of the princesses and the protectors were extremely unsightly. Chapter 207. Swoosh, swoosh. On the 9-colored sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox, Lin Yi and Silent Spirit advanced together. Every step they took, radiance shot out in all directions, incomparably dazzling. The endless saint aura quickly merged with Lin Yi. At this moment, Lin Yi finally understood that the dragon was the leader of the demon race. It could be said that it surpassed the demon race and was one of the most noble races in the world. Wherever it went, the demon race would submit. The Heavenly Fox race was also a top bloodline. However, compared to the dragon race, the difference was huge. Therefore, after he cultivated the 9 transformations of the divine dragon, he had the aura and strength of a dragon, and even the physique of a dragon. Naturally, he could withstand the saint aura of the Heavenly Fox race. The saint aura on the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox did not affect him much. 2 hours. Lin Yi was already standing on the 9,500th step. A powerful aura enveloped Silent Soul. It helped Lin Yi resist the saint aura of the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox. Otherwise, with Silent Soul's current cultivation, he would not be able to withstand the saint aura on the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox, let alone compete for the heart of the saintess. Crash! The Skyflame's sacred blade appeared in his hand. Suddenly, the space shattered. The unparalleled blade will had reached the peak of 10th perfection, and was only 1 step away from the domain realm. However, he understood that the will of 10th perfection was not 1 step away from the domain realm. To describe it, it was a natural mote, a natural mote. How difficult would it be to take this step? With a blade in hand, everything was destroyed. At this moment, Lin Yi was like a blade god standing proudly between heaven and earth, the blade Tao god. The blade light raged in the space. He looked down at the princess and the protector who were approaching step by step. He wanted to take the initiative. As long as they dared to step onto the 950th step of the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox, he would give them a destructive blow. This saintess selection was a competition, and death was inevitable. Moreover, on the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox, even if they died, they would not really die. Despicable, you are waiting in front. What do you know? Others may be strong, but do you think they'll just stand on the same level and shout 1, 2, 3 and start a fight? Indeed, if Lin Yi didn't have the strength, he wouldn't have been faster than the others. The strong are respected, and the winner is king. Although his speed is very fast in a real battle, he is definitely not as good as the princesses and protectors. Otherwise, he would not have made the first move. That should be the case. However, this is also a way. Around the Saint altar, close to 30,000 experts were watching the show. Seeing Lin Ye's actions on the 95th step of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox, they could not help but discuss it. For a moment, the crowd was boiling with excitement. Some said that Lin Yi was despicable and shameless. However, most of them were saying that Lin Yi deserved it. Because in this world where the strong were respected, the bigger fist was the reason. Besides, if Lin Yi didn't have powerful abilities, he wouldn't be the first to reach the 950th step. More importantly, in the Saintess selection, only Her Highness the Princess would become the Saintess. As for the others, they would either withdraw or leave. Otherwise, she would be killed on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Sooner or later, she would die. There was no way to die, only the end. Just as all the experts were talking about Lin Yi, something happened on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox, which made them feel speechless. Disdain and contempt rose in the hearts of countless experts who were watching the show. They saw that the first princess and Ji Lai had reached the 938th step. They were only 12 steps away from the 950th step. The 12th step was at most a dozen meters. However, at this moment the two of them stopped, sat cross-legged, and began to cultivate. It seemed that they didn't want to continue running at all. Everyone understood the situation. That was, the first princess and Ji Lai wanted the other princesses and protectors to confront Lin Yi. Ha! On the 950th step. Seeing this, Lin Yi just chuckled. The heavenly flame, sacred saber in his hand, exuded a destructive saber intent. Time passed by minute. A quarter of an hour. The third princess and her protectors had also reached the 938th step. The two of them looked at Ji Lai and the first princess and suddenly smiled. The two of them looked at each other. They also sat cross-legged and stopped to cultivate on the 938th step. Behind them, the second princess, the fifth princess, the seventh princess, the third princess, the fourth princess, and the sixth princess, as well as their protectors, all stopped at the 938th step. They thought that they had the strength to easily eliminate Lin Yi. However, they didn't want to be cannon fodder. This scene made all the experts who were watching the show almost fall to the ground. The 9 elders and the Supreme Elder. His expression became unsightly. It seems that they don't want to make the first move. Silent soul, go and take the heart of the Saintess. The corner of Lin Ye's mouth revealed a trace of a smile as he turned his head to look at Solitary Spirit. The purpose of the princesses was to compete for the heart of the Saintess and become the Saintess. In the current situation, they didn't want to go against Lin Yi, because the first to make a move would most likely become cannon fodder. As long as Silent Soul took the heart of the Saintess, the princesses wouldn't be able to sit still. Yes. Silent Soul nodded. Step by step, he carefully walked up. Just 3 meters away from Lin Yi. The destructive aura on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox crushed Silent Soul. Pucci's Silent Soul spat out a mouthful of blood and almost knelt down. Her beautiful little face was pale and weak. However, Silent Soul's eyes were determined as he staggered toward the top of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. He didn't have the slightest intention to retreat or stop. If he wanted to become the Saintess, he had to work hard. He had to complete the task that the young master gave him, even if he had to die. Pucci, every 2 steps, Silent Soul would be crushed by the destructive aura. The holy aura was almost solid. Facing the holy aura, not to mention Silent Soul, even some of the celestial realm experts would have to kneel down. And Silent Soul didn't have the intention to give up. Whoosh, seeing that Silent Soul was going to take the heart of the Saintess. The Grand Princess and the others couldn't sit still. They wanted to waste time with Lin Yi, but they didn't expect that Lin Yi would wait and let Silent Soul take the heart of the Saintess. If Silent Soul really took the heart of the Saintess, then Silent Soul would be the Saintess of this generation. They would never have another chance in this lifetime, because each princess only had one chance to participate in the Saintess selection. Seeing this, the Grand Princess glanced at Tai Lai. Her figure flashed, and she quickly went to the top of the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox. She couldn't care less about being the first to fight Lin Yi. Besides, killing Lin Yi was a piece of cake. Ultimate Blade. Heaven and Earth Annihilation. Lin Yi looked at the Grand Princess and Tai Lai coming up. Without any hesitation, the Sky Flame's sacred blade in his hand slashed down. Suddenly, the space was cut open. The overwhelming blade aura drowned the entire sacred altar of Heavenly Fox. The tenfold destruction blade wasn't a saint-level martial technique. However, Lin Yi's blade intent was at 10th perfection. This attack was enough to destroy the heavens and the earth. Under this attack, the world was cut in half by the blade light. A destructive blade light fiercely fell in front of Ji Lai. Ignorant. When Tai Lai saw that Lin Yi actually attacked him, he couldn't help but be angry. Dignity. Yes, it was dignity. The giant tribe was very powerful, and he was the most talented expert among the younger generation of the giant tribe. A young man in the creation realm attacking him was undoubtedly the greatest provocation and humiliation to him. He couldn't forgive such an insult in front of so many people. He almost ignored Lin Yi's attack. But he still attacked. As he activated his cultivation method, 5 strands of primordial chi burst out. Suddenly, the space trembled and shattered. He stretched out his hand, and the 5 strands of primordial chi met Lin Yi's blade aura. A second before the primordial chi collided with the blade aura, the 5 strands of primordial chi merged and formed a destructive martial technique. In an instant, the blade aura and the destructive martial technique collided. Boom! There was an earth-shattering explosion. Endless wind raged. The space was shattered. Even the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox felt a slight vibration, and the earth shook. Lin Yi's body was hit by a powerful force and slammed toward the top of the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox. After retreating 10 steps, Lin Yi steadied himself. At this moment, he was already at the 960th step. While Zhualai and Lin Yi exchanged blows, his body only shook a little. In this comparison, Lin Yi lost completely. The power of the celestial being 5 Chi Suns was many times stronger than that of the creation realm. The blade aura disappeared. The saber essence dissipated with the wind. There was a strong sense of uneasiness in the air. After a pause of only 10 breaths, Tai Lai quickly moved toward the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox and attacked Lin Yi fiercely. He not only wanted to kill Lin Yi, he also wanted to reach the top of the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox as soon as possible and seize the heart of the Saintess. Once, a genius of the giant tribe provoked me. I didn't take it to heart. It was the truth. He was not worth my attention. It's the same for you. Lin Yi looked at Tai Lai, who was coming up quickly, and the corners of his mouth twitched. He said faintly, "The giant tribe had unparalleled combat strength. In particular, human experts could not compete with them in terms of physique and attack power. However, Lin Yi had cultivated the 9 changes of Divine Dragon, so his physique and attack power were not comparable to that of the ordinary alien race. Moreover, Lin Yi had invincible attack and absolute defense. He also had all kinds of heaven-defying means. I want you to understand a fact. The creation realm and the celestial being realm are not at the same level. You are just an ant in my eyes." Jie Lai's expression was ugly. From his point of view, Lin Yizhen's every word was a form of provocation and humiliation to him because the difference in status between the two of them was too great. The giant dragon did not associate with ants. He was a giant dragon. Lin Yi was an ant. Now that the ant was against him, it was the greatest humiliation to him. The celestial being 5 Chi Suns was activated to the extreme. A huge war hammer appeared in his hand. The war hammer exuded the power of a destructive sacred weapon, compatible with the sacred power on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox, instantly causing his strength to skyrocket. The air was not quiet at this moment. Boom! Tai Lai swung the war hammer and hammered through the air. Suddenly, the space shattered. Endless space fragments shot in all directions, and the destructive power blasted toward Lin Yi with a dark gold color. The 100 inscription sacred weapon war hammer, coupled with the cultivation of the celestial being 5 Qi suns, could destroy heaven and earth with one blow. The terrifying power was indescribable, and the speed was extremely fast beyond the naked eye. Soul Mirror. Lin Yi looked at the destructive attack crushing toward him. The corner of his mouth could not help but reveal a smile. With a thought, a palm-sized round mirror appeared in his hand. The round mirror was naturally the soul mirror, a spiritual treasure. The soul mirror shone at the destructive attack. Suddenly, the destructive attack strangely returned and ruthlessly smashed towards Ji Lai. Everyone was stunned by this scene. Even Ji Lai was dumbfounded. In his mind, he imagined countless scenes of Lin Yi being crushed by him. He had also thought of countless ways for Lin Yi to escape. However, he did not expect that his most powerful attack would be instantly reflected by Lin Yi and crushed toward him. This scene stunned him. When he came to his senses, the destructive attack had already fallen on him. Boom! Puff! There was an earth-shattering explosion. The power of the war hammer bombarded Tai Lai. Tai Lai was not prepared at all. The defense that he forcibly raised could not resist his own destructive hammer at all. Suddenly, his whole body was smashed and dissipated. In an instant, Tai Lai died. He was kicked out of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Below the altar, there were nearly 30,000 experts. They were stunned. The princess and the protectors on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox were also stunned. They were not shocked by Lin Ye's strength. They were shocked by the treasure in Lin Ye's hand that could reflect the opponent's attack. Who would not be afraid of such a heaven-defying method? They naturally did not know. The soul mirror in Lin Ye's hand could only be used once, and it consumed a lot of his spiritual power. Now, the soul mirror had the power of one attack at most. Soul Light. Chapter 208. Su Lai was kicked out of the altar? That treasure is too heaven-defying. It can actually reflect the opponent's attack. It's simply invincible. I think that treasure has limitations. Everything in this world has checks and balances and flaws. There is no perfect thing. I'm sure that he can't use that treasure a second time. The most powerful protector was kicked out just like that. It's really surprising. There were nearly 30,000 experts around the altar. There was nothing but shock. Their mouths were wide open, and their eyeballs were about to fly out. After a long time, these experts woke up from the shock. For a time, all the experts burst into heated discussions. All the topics were about the soul mirror in Lin Ye's hand. That treasure was too incredible. It was simply invincible. The atmosphere on the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox was extremely strange. If they went up, they would be attacked by Lin Yi. If they didn't go up, Silent Soul would take away the heart of the saintess. There was only one chance in this life. They couldn't give up just like that. They were unwilling. They were in a dilemma. They didn't know what to do. 987 step. Silent Soul spat out another mouthful of blood. Her snow-white veil was soaked with blood. She was so weak that she could collapse at any time. She was able to hold on until now because of her faith and unyielding will. The closer she got to the top of the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox, the more determined she became. Only by becoming the saintess could she have higher achievements. Let's fight. At most, we will be kicked out of the altar. I don't believe that he is our opponent. Let's join forces. Let's get rid of him first. Yes, let's get rid of him and then snatch the heart of the saintess with our strength. On the altar, the 7 princesses and 6 protectors exchanged glances with one another and said. At this moment, The only thing they could do was to defeat Lin Yi. Otherwise, they would have to lose this opportunity. Anyway, they wouldn't really die on the sacred altar of Heavenly Fox. It was better to fight than to withdraw like this. For a time, more than a dozen celestial realm experts condensed heavenly martial art. The space trembled and shattered. Bursts of primordial chi soared into the sky. This side of the world was completely destroyed. The sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox also began to shake. Each of the 13 monstrous experts in the celestial realm who had attained the 5 Chi's rising sun were the most monstrous existences in their respective races. When they joined forces to display their might, even those in the celestial realm would be killed by their aura and pressure, let alone those in the blessed realm. In fact, even a half-saint would not be able to withstand it. Lin Yi was just a young man in blessed realm, and there was no way he could fight back. All the experts who were watching the show were shocked. They were all curious as to what would happen to Lin Yi. Most of them felt pity for Lin Yi and Silent Soul. However, a pitiful person must have a detestable side. If Lin Yi wasn't so arrogant, he wouldn't have attracted the cooperation of the princesses and protectors. Rumble, rumble, dark clouds covered the sky. Bursts of thunderclaps could be heard. Although the 13 celestial realm geniuses had not yet made a move, their cultivation methods and momentum made all the experts feel breathless, and their faces turned pale. This is the consequence of being arrogant. He's finished. I'm guessing that he can't even withstand the first princess's pressure. What a pity. If it wasn't for this, he might have had some hope of making the little princess the saintess. It's just that he's too arrogant and high-profile, causing public anger. The outcome is self-evident. Below the sacred altar, discussions were incessant. Other than the half-dragon elites who wanted to see Lin Yi get kicked out of the Heavenly Fox altar, most of the others were gloating and felt pity for Lin Yi and Silent Soul. They all agreed that Lin Yi couldn't even withstand the pressure of the first princess and the others. Not to mention fighting against 13 monstrous celestial tier elite. 13 monstrous experts in the celestial being realm with 5 Chi rising suns circulated their cultivation methods and mobilized their auras, which was enough to kill any expert below the creation realm. Even those in the celestial being realm could not withstand it. Lin Yi felt the threat of destruction, and his heart became heavy. The celestial realm was indeed terrifying. Celestial realm, 5 Chi's rising sun was even more terrifying. 13 monstrous experts in the celestial being realm with 5 Chi rising suns were simply indescribable. If he hadn't reached the celestial being realm, he wouldn't have had any hope of competing with them. After all, each of the 13 people in front of him was basically invincible among their peers. The power of their joint forces could destroy heaven and earth. With a cold snort, he activated the Starry Sky Divine Art. At the same time, he activated the Divine Dragon 9 transformations. He stomped hard on the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox, and suddenly, a towering power erupted. His strength was displayed to the peak. At this moment, he was like an invincible god of war. Facing 13 celestial beings who were invincible among their peers, he didn't have the slightest fear. Boom! His imposing aura rushed toward the eldest princess and the others in an overwhelming manner. This action shocked everyone. Even the first princess and the others were shocked. A creation realm cultivator dared to use his own power to fight against the power of 13 monstrous celestial being realm cultivators. He didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. However, Lin Yi still did it. In an instant on the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox. The power collided with each other. There was a shocking explosion, and the space was torn apart. This situation was beyond the imagination of the celestial being realm cultivators. Only a battle between saints could have such a terrifying scene. Lin Ye's body was lifted and thrown fiercely toward the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox. In an instant, he had crossed 130 steps. At this moment, he landed on the 9640th step. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Looking at the first princess and the others again, their faces were extremely ugly. Because not only did their power fail to kill Lin Yi, but they also sent Lin Yi to the 9600th step, saving Lin Yi more than 100 steps for nothing, which made them angry. More importantly, that was the horror of Lin Yi. Under their joint forces, he was able to compete with them. His talent and strength were simply terrifying. If one of them fought with Lin Yi alone, he would not be a match for Lin Yi at all. At this moment, they no longer dared to underestimate Lin Yi. If Ji Lai was killed by Lin Ye's treasure, it could only mean that Lin Ye's treasure was powerful. Now that they fought with Lin Yi, they realized that Lin Yi was not as simple as they thought. Kill! Her Highness the Fifth Princess shouted softly. A destructive attack blasted toward Lin Yi. The other princesses and protectors also launched terrifying attacks. At this moment the entire space was torn apart, and the sacred altar of the heavenly fox shook more obviously, as if it was about to be destroyed at any time. There were nearly 30,000 experts around the altar. Seeing this scene, they were all shocked to the extreme. Everyone knew that Lin Yi would soon disappear and be kicked out of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Light of the soul. Lin Yi looked at the destructive attacks. He knew his limits and knew that he couldn't withstand these attacks at all. If he was alone, he wouldn't be afraid. However, he didn't dare to resist the joint attacks of 13 terrifying experts. Seeing that the destructive attacks were about to come and drown him, he used his divine thought and the soul mirror appeared in his hand again. Then, the soul mirror shone at the 13 geniuses of the celestial realm. The overbearing and powerful divine thought operated, and the soul mirror burst into a magical light. Chapter 209. Under the operation of the Divine Mind at the peak of level 51. The soul mirror burst into a magical light. Wherever the light passed, it was as if nothing existed. Without the gap of time and space, the light appeared and enveloped the first princess and the other 13 celestial realm geniuses. Seeing this light, the first princess and the others were shocked. Immediately, the look on their faces became painful. Die! Lin Yi, as the controller of the soul mirror. Naturally, he knew the power and effect of the soul mirror. The soul mirror was a divine mind treasure. Among the divine mind treasures, it was also an existence like 100 inscription sacred artifact. One attack and one support, two major effects. The attack was the light of the soul. The support was to reflect the opponent's attack. In fact, the attack of the soul mirror was also a kind of support because this light of the soul could not directly kill an expert of the same level, but it slowed down their movements and attacked their soul. In fact, the light of the soul was only a support. Of course, if Lin Yi wanted to deal with a creation realm expert, this light of the soul would directly obliterate the opponent's soul. However, in the face of a celestial realm expert who was much stronger than him, it was simply a fool's dream to rely on the light of the soul to kill him. However, the power of the light of the soul was also heaven-defying. It delayed the opponent for a breath. In a battle between experts, victory or defeat was decided in an instant. To an expert who knew how many times they would die in this short span of time. Boom! Taking advantage of the power of the light of the soul, Lin Yi waved one hand. Suddenly, an icy aurora burst out. The cold sky aurora, the peak of the second level. Wherever the aurora passed, the space was cut open. Puff, puff, the light of the soul disappeared. The first princess and the others finally came to their senses. However, there were a few people who would never be able to react. They saw that under the cold sky aurora, the second princess, the third princess, and the 4 protectors were directly obliterated by the cold sky aurora, and their bodies vanished into thin air. Kicked out of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. 13 celestial realm geniuses. Not only did they fail to kill Lin Yi with their joint attack, but they also lost 6 people to Lin Yi. Almost half of them were killed in an instant. From the eldest princess, 13 people joining hands to Lin Ye's soul light and frigid sky aurora. The entire process only took 2 breaths of time. In just 2 breaths of time, 6 Sky Realm warriors had died. Below the holy altar, the 30,000 experts did not see what had happened. Heavenly Emperor Fist. Lin Yi didn't stop at all. Now that he had gained the upper hand, he threw out his Heavenly Emperor Fist. Suddenly, a fist aura pierced through space and went straight for the first princess. Humph. The first princess snorted angrily. Her slender jade-like hand flicked through the air, and a mystical power went straight for the celestial Emperor Fist. The cultivation of the 5 Qi Yang Yang of the celestial realm was extremely terrifying. Without relying on treasures, Lin Yi was no match for her at all. Crack Qi Qi, the fist radiance burst forth. Lin Yi shuddered and retreated toward the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. A trace of blood spilled from the corner of his mouth. The strength of the first princess had indeed shocked him. At the same time, he also understood that the Sky Realm warriors were all powerful and invincible. It was simply a dream to defeat them head-on. Sky-destroying finger. Lin Yi let out a soft cry and pointed a finger in the air. The space trembled violently. The saint-level martial technique could destroy heaven and earth. The second level of Sky-destroying finger was the most powerful move among Lin Ye's martial technique. The distorted and broken space made countless experts tremble. Her Royal Highness the First Princess also revealed a look of shock on her beautiful face. She was a celestial realm warrior with 5 Qi Yang Yang. She was talented and powerful. However, she didn't master the saint-level martial technique. Seeing Lin Ye's attack, she knew that Lin Yi had mastered the saint-level martial technique. The saint-level martial technique was the means of a saint. Its power could destroy heaven and earth and make gods and ghosts cry. 5 Qi Yang Yang. Scorching Sun Shield. The first princess stood on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Her cultivation of the 5 Qi rising sun of the celestial being realm was operating to the limit. 5 streams of Yuan Qi soared into the sky, instantly forming a blazing sun shield. The shield of the scorching sun protected the first princess completely. It was not that she overestimated Lin Yi, but she was afraid of Lin Ye's saint-tier martial skills. She had seen Lin Ye's martial skills, the Heavenly Emperor Fist and the Heavenly Frost Aurora, which were both saint-ranked martial skills. She was extremely envious, but it was extremely difficult to obtain such martial skills. Even in the Heavenly Fox clan, there were not many saint-level martial skills, and none of them were suitable for her. Crack, the heaven-destroying finger landed on the scorching sun shield. Cracks appeared on the scorching sun shield. Immediately after, the scorching sun shield shattered and vanished into thin air. The power of the finger pierced through the first princess's glabella. The first princess died and disappeared. She was kicked out of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Metal-type domain 4. Powerful indeed. Lin Yi was shocked. He did not expect that the power of his heaven-destroying finger would become even more terrifying after attaining 4 metal-type domains. Metal-type domains were sharp and destructive. After attaining 4 metal-type domains, his attack power was even more shocking. Without 4 metal-type domains, he would not have been able to break through the defense of the scorching sun shield, let alone kill the first princess. It seemed that domains were the most terrifying. Go down. Kill the first princess. Lin Ye's gaze shifted to the other princesses and protectors. Now, in front of Lin Yi, only the 4 princesses and 2 protectors were left. Seeing how terrifying Lin Yi was, the 6 of them looked terrible. Even Ji Lai and the first princess were kicked out of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Who else could be Lin Ye's opponent? Let's see what else you have. Her Royal Highness, the 5th princess, looked terrible. Before the sacred altar of the heavenly fox appeared, she had already ridiculed Silent Soul. She did not expect that Silent Soul had such a monstrous protector, an invincible existence. Thinking that Silent Soul was about to become the Saintess, she was filled with hatred. She hated Silent Soul, and hated Lin Yi even more. If it were not for Lin Yi, Silent Soul would not have had a chance at all. Ignorant! Lin Yi snorted. The Heavenly Emperor Fist burst out. It was also the peak of the third level of the Heavenly Emperor Fist, but the power of this punch was countless times stronger than before. A punch was thrown. The space collapsed. The destructive fist light pierced through the space and crushed in front of the fifth princess. The invincible attack was integrated into the Heavenly Emperor Fist. It increased the power of the Heavenly Emperor Fist by countless times. Ah, there was a scream. The defense of the fifth princess was directly broken. Her whole body was like a meteor, quickly rushing down the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox. She turned into nothingness in midair. With this punch, the fifth princess was directly turned into air. This punch really shocked the rest of the people. None of them dared to imagine just how powerful that punch was. It actually turned a celestial realm genius with 5 chi rising sun directly into thin air. Such power was beyond their imagination. On the 9,970th step of the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox, Silent Soul spat out a mouthful of blood. Her delicate body shook, and she almost fell. Chapter 210. On the 9,970th step of the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox, Silent Soul spat out a mouthful of blood, her delicate body swayed, and she almost fell. His entire body was extremely weak. At this moment, Silent Soul had reached her limit, and it was impossible for her to take another step forward. Her delicate body stood on the 9,970th step, trembling slightly. Her beautiful eyes looked helplessly at Lin Yi. "Leave it to me." Lin Yi knew that Silent Soul had reached her limit. He said comfortingly. He looked at the other protectors and the princess on the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox. At this moment, the Starry Sky Divine Art was activated to the limit, and the 9 changes of the Divine Dragon was activated. He roared and turned into a 1,000-meter-long azure dragon. The azure dragon circled between heaven and earth. The dragon power soared into the sky. With a claw, he clawed at the protector of the 6th princess. The space was torn apart by the dragon claw. The experts below the sacred altar were shocked to see Lin Yi's strength. A human youth in the blessed realm was actually so powerful that it perfectly explained the concept of being invincible. What was invincible? Lin Yi was invincible. All the experts looked at the battle in the void in a daze. The 9 elders and the 9 supreme elders were also surprised by Lin Yi's strength. True dragon. The half-dragon elder had an ugly expression on his face. He was a half-dragon, which meant that he was not a real dragon. But the young man in front of him had the body of a true dragon, and the cultivation method he practiced was the real invincible method of the Dragon Clan. For a moment, he was envious and jealous. A descendant of the Dragon Clan. That's the invincible technique of the Dragon Clan. He has reached the Azure Dragon Realm. There were foreign races around the sacred altar. They saw the Azure Dragon that Lin Yi had transformed into in the void. They couldn't help but be surprised. To them, the Dragon Clan was undoubtedly their master. Because the Dragon Clan was the real leader of all races, the leader of the Demon Clan, even if the Dragon Clan had never regarded themselves as part of the Demon Clan. It was because the Dragon Clan was so powerful that they had surpassed all the Demon Clans. They stood at the top of the world. No one is his match. The Grand Cultivator Elder looked at the 1,000-meter-long azure dragon in the sky. He said in a low voice. At this moment, he could already see the ending. Although there were still a few Celestial Realm experts left, they were no match for Lin Yi. As long as Lin Yi killed everyone, he would be able to help Silent Soul obtain the heart of the Saintess. Sure enough, in a short 7 minutes, Only Lin Yi and Silent Soul were left on the altar. The others were all kicked out of the Heavenly Fox sacred altar by Lin Yi. Roar! The dragon that Lin Yi had transformed into let out a roar that shook the 9 heavens. With a flash of his body, he charged toward the top of the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox with the momentum of the wind and clouds. In just 10 breaths of time, the azure dragon was floating above Silent Soul. It helped Silent Soul withstand all the sacred aura. With Lin Ye's help, Silent Soul felt a little more relaxed. However, as soon as he relaxed, he almost fell. Fortunately, Silent Soul reacted in time and forced himself to stabilize. Obtain the heart of the Saintess. Lin Ye's voice sounded. The dragon aura shook the world. In the face of the sacred aura, he did not retreat at all. With the dragon aura enveloping Silent Soul was no longer suppressed by the sacred aura on the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox. Yes. A trace of a smile appeared on Solitary Spirit's beautiful face. A smile that could topple a city. The combination of charm and holiness was indescribable. With that, he walked toward the top of the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox. Without the suppression of the sacred aura, Silent Soul quickly reached the top of the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox. Whoosh! The azure dragon swooped down. At the moment when it was about to hit the top of the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox, the azure dragon turned into a ray of light. As the light fell, Lin Ye's figure appeared. The azure dragon turned into its original form. Lin Ye's body was filled with endless fatigue. His essence, qi, and spirit were extremely weak. Although he did not suffer any injuries in the battle on the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox. But the consumption of divine sense was terrifying. Until now, he did not have much divine sense left. The divine sense of a peak level 51 divine sense was extremely powerful and huge. But after using the soul mirror, his divine sense was almost exhausted. This was something that outsiders would not know. On the 10,000-meter-tall sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox. At this moment it was extremely quiet. At the top of the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox, Lin Yi and Silent Soul stood side by side. Both of them looked at the center of the top of the sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox. That place was a crystal stone with a radius of 1 meter. On top of the crystal stone, there was a white heart-shaped crystal suspended. From afar, it was heart-shaped, but taking a closer look, this heart-shaped crystal had countless water caltrops, as if it had undergone a magical cutting technique. A mysterious and ethereal aura was emitted from the heart-shaped crystal. At this moment, this part of the world was centered around the heart-shaped crystal, and the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was attracted by it. The heart of the Saintess. Silent Soul and Lin Yi said in unison. Their faces were filled with excitement. After competing for so long, they finally saw the heart of the Saintess. The heart of the Saintess was right in front of them. As long as they got the heart of the Saintess, Silent Soul would be this year's Saintess. The Saintess of the Heavenly Fox clan. Go! Lin Yi said, his palm gently patting Silent Soul's shoulder. Silent Soul bowed and then walked towards the heart of the Saintess. Her heart was beating faster. After more than 20 years, her dream was about to come true. She would become the Saintess, enter the sacred temple of the Heavenly Fox clan, and go to the sacred place of the Heavenly Fox clan. Success was right in front of her. 10 meters away. Silent Soul took a long time. Approaching the heart of the Saintess, she reached out and carefully grabbed the heart of the Saintess. Her fingers just touched the heart of the Saintess. The heart of the Saintess erupted with a shocking light. Within the shocking light, there was an unparalleled mystical power. All of the power and light wrapped around Silent Spirit. Gradually, Silent Soul floated. She had a beautiful face and a perfect figure. Shrouded in white light, at this moment, she was a real goddess. Noble, holy, charming. Her whole person, from the outside to the inside, transformed. 5th level of the creation realm. 6th level of the creation realm, 7th level of the creation realm, 8th level of the creation realm, 9th level of the creation realm. Her cultivation soared, her aura soared, and her aura became extremely terrifying. In just 10 breaths, Silent Soul went from the 5th level of the creation realm to the 9th level of the creation realm. Her cultivation did not stop, but continued to climb, as if there was no end. Celestial Realm, 3 flowers at one's prominence. Celestial Realm, 5 Chi rising Sunday. Celestial Realm, 9 nines to origin. Celestial Realm, Transcendence Golden Body. Finally, Silent Soul's cultivation stopped at the peak of the Celestial Realm Transcendence Golden Body. However, her Transcendence Golden Body was terrifying to the extreme. The 9-tailed celestial fox's original form and human form were constantly changing. This scene was mysterious and marvelous. The heart of the saintess had long disappeared to an unknown place. However, a lotus mark appeared between Ji Ling's eyebrows. The lotus mark merged with her holy and charming temperament. Chapter 2:11. Her long hair fluttered in the wind like a goddess. However, what almost made Lin Yi have a nosebleed was that Silent Soul's blood-soaked veil had already turned into nothingness, and her perfect body was completely presented in front of Lin Yi. Perfect, it was perfect. A perfect beauty, a masterpiece of God. Even if Lin Yi had a peak level 51 spiritual sense, and cultivated the 3000 heavenly Tao, seeing Silent Soul's current situation, his mind was completely lost. Fortunately, Silent Soul was currently shrouded in a white light, and the powerhouses below the altar of Heavenly Fox couldn't see through the white light. Otherwise, all the powerhouses present would collapse. Silent Soul in the midst of her transformation. She didn't know her current situation at all. She didn't know how embarrassed Lin Yi was right now. After an unknown amount of time, Silent Soul woke up from her transformation and found that the veil on her body had disappeared. Her beautiful face couldn't help but turn pale. There were nearly 30,000 powerhouses below the altar of Heavenly Fox. It would be terrible if they saw her body. However, she immediately reacted. She found that the light around her covered her, and the people below couldn't see her current situation. However, seeing Lin Yi's situation, knowing that Lin Yi had seen everything, her little face suddenly showed a touch of red. With a thought, a veil appeared and draped over her body. Then, she hurriedly took out the veil from the space treasure and put it on the ship. Only then did she breathe a sigh of relief. Lin Yi on the other side. It was extremely awkward. Congratulations! Lin Yi coughed dryly, trying to resolve the awkwardness. Said. However, how could this awkwardness be resolved so easily? It was obviously impossible. The more it was like this, the more awkward the two were. Thank you, young master. Silent Soul was extremely shy. Step by step, she walked towards Lin Yi and bowed. Everything she got was fought for by Lin Yi. If it wasn't for Lin Yi, she naturally wouldn't have been able to get the heart of the saintess, let alone become the saintess. How do you feel? Lin Yi asked. In his mind, Silent Soul's perfect body couldn't be erased. It was as if he was possessed. Using his divine sense, he forced himself to calm down. In the sea of consciousness, Biluo was already laughing uncontrollably. Lin Yi felt even more embarrassed. Transform. Even ordinary half-saints can't kill me. Silent Soul's beautiful and seductive face was full of excitement when she talked about her gains. Going from the 5th level of the creation realm to the peak of the celestial realm was simply a miracle. This was her biggest gain. It wasn't just a leap in cultivation. Instead, it was a metamorphosis, a complete metamorphosis. His talent was even more heaven-defying. The 9-tailed celestial fox's monstrous talent was finally activated this time. In the future, she would become even more heaven-defying. Rumble, rumble, at this moment, the void trembled. Lightning bolts descended. It was the end of the world. The sacred altar of the heavenly fox shook violently as if it was about to vanish. The experts around the sacred altar quickly retreated. The Grand Princess and the others all looked enviously at Lin Yi and Silent Soul at the top of the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. It originally belonged to them, but unfortunately, Silent Soul got it. Now, Silent Soul had truly become a saintess. The sacred altar of the heavenly fox would also vanish. The sacred altar of the heavenly fox would not appear for 100 years. Whoosh! The 10,000-meter-tall sacred altar of the heavenly fox quickly melted in the endless lightning bolts and turned into light. Then, the light quickly rose into the sky and formed a 9-colored auspicious cloud. The 9-colored auspicious cloud enveloped Lin Yi and Silent Soul. Master, quickly! Refine them. It is said that only when two people join forces and have 100 domains can they have a chance to enter the sacred place of the Heavenly Fox clan. The sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox melted in an instant. The two were enveloped by the 9-colored auspicious cloud. Silent Soul said excitedly to Lin Yi. The sacred altar of the Heavenly Fox was not only a test for the selection of the saintess, but also a great opportunity. This kind of opportunity was hard to come by in one's lifetime, and it was definitely a great benefit for the geniuses. All right. Lin Yi had already felt the magic of the 9-colored auspicious clouds. The 9-colored auspicious cloud was like a tonic that nourished his intent realm and domain, as well as his soul consciousness. His entire body was surrounded by 9-colored auspicious clouds. It was as comfortable as soaking in a hot spring. Hearing Silent Soul's words, he was even more certain that this rainbow auspicious cloud wasn't simple. It didn't matter if he could reach 100 domains or not. However, he had to refine these 9-colored auspicious clouds first. Moreover, he realized that the 9-colored auspicious clouds were rapidly disappearing. If he delayed any longer, more of the 9-colored auspicious clouds would disappear. Liuli, come out. All of a sudden Lin Yi thought of the green darkness glaze. The green darkness glaze needed resources the most to devour and strengthen itself. It was obvious that he and Silent Soul couldn't refine all of the 9-colored auspicious clouds. Instead of wasting them, it was better to let Liuli come out and refine them. In that case, Liuli would become even stronger. Great! Great! Liuli appeared and turned into a 1-meter-long grass. She felt the magic of the 9-colored auspicious clouds. Liuli couldn't help but be excited. Silent Soul was also very happy to see Liuli. She was worried that the 9-colored auspicious clouds would be wasted. Now that the green darkness glaze came out, the benefits would naturally be picked up by the green darkness glaze. The green darkness glaze was Lin Yi's treasure. If the green darkness glaze was strong, Lin Yi would be stronger. If Lin Yi was strong, her backer would be stronger. Immediately, two people and a plant. They quickly refined and devoured the 9-colored auspicious cloud. Lin Yi's face was filled with excitement. He finally understood why the protectors helped the princesses. It seemed that they were mainly here for the 9-colored auspicious clouds. The 9-colored auspicious clouds were a great supplement for the monstrous expert. It was a cheating treasure. His divine sense was constantly being tempered and improved. His intent realm was constantly improving. His physique was also being tempered and nourished. Boom! Boom! In the void, the 9-colored auspicious clouds with a diameter of 100 meters were constantly rolling. At the same time, it was rapidly shrinking. The 9-colored auspicious clouds that were disappearing were almost negligible. 9 supreme elders and 9 elders. There were also some veteran peerless experts who saw the scene in the void and couldn't help but be surprised. They were all clear about one thing. That is, if the 9-colored auspicious clouds were not refined, they would dissipate. In the past, after every saintess selection, only 10 to 20% of the 9-colored auspicious clouds that appeared were refined. The rest would dissipate. But this time, the 9-colored auspicious clouds almost didn't dissipate. More importantly, the speed at which the 9-colored auspicious cloud was shrinking was more than 10 times faster than before. Gradually, all the experts present who were watching the show, they also noticed the 9-colored auspicious clouds shrinking. They were all shocked and puzzled by this scene. Chapter 2:12. In the 9-colored auspicious clouds, Silent Soul, Lin Yi, and Qing Ming Glaze, 2 people and a plant, were constantly devouring and refining the 9-colored auspicious cloud. Lin Yi had already reached 13 domains on the sacred altar of the heavenly fox. Now, with the nourishment of the 9-colored auspicious clouds, his comprehension of intent and domains continued to improve. 14, 15, 16. As time went by, the 9-colored auspicious clouds all disappeared. In the void, Silent Soul was like a goddess, noble and holy. Lin Yi put his hands behind his back, with a smile on his face. The Qing Ming Glaze turned into a palm-sized grass, suspended in front of Lin Yi, constantly rotating and exuding a mysterious aura. Devour, refine. All were devoured and refined. Not bad. The 9-colored auspicious clouds were all devoured and refined, and the loss was almost negligible. The one with the biggest gain was undoubtedly the Qing Ming Glaze. Just it alone had devoured 2/3 of the 9-colored auspicious clouds. Now the Qing Ming Glaze had successfully transformed and reached the first stage, the 4th form. The result: a magical little fruit was at the center of the 9 green vines. The 4th form meant that the power of the Qing Ming Glaze was even more terrifying. As for how strong it was, Lin Yi did not delve into it. Anyway, the Qing Ming Glaze gave him the feeling that it was at least comparable to a celestial realm expert. Silent Soul. Her cultivation had already reached the peak of the celestial realm when she obtained the heart of Saintus and had a transcendence golden body. Now her intent realm had broken through and sublimated. She had 49 domains, the dark domain. Lin Yi himself had 99 domains of the gold domain. Moreover, his divine will had also reached the peak of level 52. As for his cultivation realm, it was still at the peak of level 8 creation realm. Master, how many domains do you have? Silent Soul's smart and charming eyes, looking at Lin Yi. Suddenly, Lin Ye's heart trembled. It was too beautiful, too seductive. If his parapsychic sense hadn't reached the pinnacle of level 52, he wouldn't have been able to withstand Silent Soul's stare. Fortunately, Silent Soul didn't target him, or else he would have been in trouble. As for the other experts, they would definitely fall. Enough to enter the sacred land of the Heavenly Fox clan. What about you? Lin Yi smiled. He was very confident. Silent Soul previously said that the 2 of them needed 100 territories to enter the sacred land of the Celestial Fox clan. Now that he had 99 territories, as long as Silent Soul had 1 territory, he would be able to enter the sacred land of the Celestial Fox clan. He obviously didn't believe that Silent Soul didn't even have a territory. I have 49 domains. However, for some reason, my domain is darkness. Silent Soul said happily. However, when it came to the attributes of domains, he couldn't help but become curious. Darkness domain was a very rare attribute. At the very least, she had never seen a dark major expert before, let alone a domain of darkness. Darkness domain. It is indeed rare. You have to recultivate your martial skills and cultivation methods. Lin Yi was stunned. Dark Major was indeed rare. The key point was that Silent Soul didn't cultivate the Dark Major before. He didn't expect that after obtaining a territory, it would be the Dark Major. It was indeed curious and puzzling. Since it was the Dark Major, then Silent Soul could only cultivate Dark Major martial arts techniques and technique. Gongzi, I don't have any Dark Major martial arts techniques or technique. Silent Soul's beautiful little face revealed a difficult expression. She definitely didn't have any dark major martial arts techniques or technique. Not to mention her, even the entire Heavenly Fox clan, or even the Shungling Heavenly Sect, might not have any dark major martial arts techniques or technique. After all, the dark major was too rare. Moreover, a talent like Silent Soul, ordinary dark attribute cultivation methods and martial skills were of no use at all. Opportunity, opportunity. When the time comes, I'll go out and think of a way, Lin Yi said. To be honest, he had a lot of resources and wealth, but he didn't have any dark major martial arts techniques or technique. Now, he could only take one step at a time. Okay. Silent Soul nodded. Then, the two of them landed together. Saintus Your Highness. Saintus Your Highness. Saintus Your Highness. Silent Soul landed. Immediately, all the Heavenly Fox clan experts around the holy altar half-knelt towards Silent Soul. Even the 9 elders did the same. Only the 9 grand elders didn't half-kneel. The new Saintess of the century was born. Moreover, this generation's Saintess and Protector were the most monstrous existences in history. One was a human youth, creation realm cultivation base, monstrous and heaven-defying. The other was a 9-tailed Heavenly Fox, a rare existence in the Heavenly Fox clan. He and she were both the youngest. After calling Saintess Your Highness 3 times, Silent Soul raised her slender hand. She signaled all the Heavenly Fox clan experts to rise. The experts of the other clans congratulated the Heavenly Fox clan. However, the protectors looked at Lin Yi with fear and hatred in their eyes, because Lin Yi took away the opportunity that should have belonged to them. But they understood. Lin Yi was monstrous in the beginning. Now that he had been tempered by the 9-colored auspicious clouds of the Heavenly Fox sacred altar, he must be even more terrifying. Wanting to go against Lin Yi was obviously not a rational choice. Saintess Your Highness, please enter the Heavenly Fox sacred temple. The Supreme Cultivator Elder said loudly. The Heavenly Fox sacred temple. It was a place that only the Saintess of the Heavenly Fox clan could enter. Except for the Saintess, no one else could enter. Although it couldn't be compared to the sacred place of the Heavenly Fox clan, it was close. Then, Silent Soul and Lin Yi walked side by side towards the Heavenly Fox clan's sacred temple. Logically speaking, only the Saintess could enter the Heavenly Fox sacred temple. However, Lin Yi was the protector of the Saintess. As long as the Saintess agreed, he could enter the Heavenly Fox sacred temple. This was also one of the ways for the Heavenly Fox clan to live in peace with the other clans. It gave the other clans some opportunity and hope. This way, the other clans wouldn't covet the Heavenly Fox sacred temple. The selection of the Saintess. The Saintess had been born. The experts of the other clans left one after another. Chapter 213. Heavenly Fox Holy Palace in the center of the Heavenly Fox clan. This place was known as the Forbidden Area of the Heavenly Fox clan. Very few people came here. Even the elders would not easily set foot here because this was where the Saintess lived. More importantly, the entrance to the Heavenly Fox clan's Holy Palace was in the Heavenly Fox Holy Palace. Only the Saintess was qualified to enter the Holy Palace. However, for tens of thousands of years, no Saintess of the Heavenly Fox clan had entered the Holy Palace. The Holy Palace had become a mysterious legend. Every 100 years, after the selection of the Saintess, the Heavenly Fox clan had the highest expectations. Soon, Silent Soul and Lin Yi came to the front of the Heavenly Fox Holy Palace. The Heavenly Fox Holy Palace was a cyan palace. The palace was not big, only about 100 meters in length and width. However, the palace exuded a mysterious aura. 100 meters away from the palace, Lin Yi felt a destructive sense of oppression. That sense of oppression was countless times more terrifying than the Saintess on the Heavenly Fox holy altar. As for the other experts and people of the Heavenly Fox clan, they had already stopped far away. At this moment, Lin Yi could not take a step closer. His face was extremely dignified. On the other hand, Silent Soul's beautiful face looked calm, without the slightest pressure. "Young master, wait." Silent Soul saw Lin Yi's situation and said. Then, she activated her cultivation method. The lotus-shaped mark between her eyebrows exuded a mysterious aura. This aura was exactly the same as the one in the palace. Suddenly, Silent Soul's entire body completely merged with the aura of the palace. Step by step, she walked towards the palace. She stopped in front of the palace. In front of the palace, Silent Soul sacrificed a drop of blood essence. The blood essence dripped onto a seal on the ground. Suddenly, a passage appeared in front of the palace, a passage without any oppression. Seeing this, Lin Yi hurried to the palace door. Rumble rumble at this moment, the palace door slowly opened. The Cyan Palace. Inside, it was like a crystal palace, even with a hint of coldness. Silent Soul stepped in. Her aura enveloped Lin Yi. Lin Yi also smoothly entered the palace. The moment the two entered the palace door closed. At this moment the two of them felt as if they had entered an independent world. The interior of the palace was simple and unadorned. It was suitable for cultivation. There was no aura of conflict, making one feel incomparably tranquil. This is the Heavenly Fox Sacred Palace. Today, my dream has finally come true. Silent Soul stood in the middle of the palace, his beautiful face filled with excitement. At this moment she was like a sly fox, like a child who had been given candy. This place belongs to you. Realizing it is only a matter of time. Lin Yi had a smile on his face. With Silent Soul's talent, becoming a saintess was only a matter of time. Otherwise, the Heavenly Fox clan would not have agreed. The nine-tailed celestial fox was a monstrous existence that only appeared in the celestial fox clan every tens of thousands of years. Every nine-tailed celestial fox was an existence that shocked the entire continent. Countless clans looked up to the celestial fox clan. "Young master, thank you. If it wasn't for you, I would have to wait at least 100 years. Moreover, 100 years later, I may not be able to enter the sacred palace of the Celestial Fox clan. Being unable to enter the sacred palace is of no help to the Celestial Fox clan." Silent Soul turned around. She bowed to Lin Yi, said respectfully. Her tone was so gentle that it made one's heart melt. What she said was the truth. In 100 years, she could definitely become a saintess. However, after becoming a saintess, she may not be able to enter the sacred palace of the Celestial Fox clan. The sacred palace was the hope of the Celestial Fox clan. No one has ever entered the sacred palace? Lin Yi was a little curious. Was the sacred palace really that difficult to enter? Yes. The previous saintess. However, they could only open the door to the sacred palace and came out not long after entering. Silent Soul said softly. Speaking of the previous saintess, her delicate body began to tremble slightly. This situation made Lin Yi feel both puzzled and curious. He immediately reacted. Silent Soul should have some kind of relationship with the previous saintess. Either they were familiar with each other or had some contact. Otherwise, she wouldn't have such a big reaction when talking about the previous saintess. Enter the sacred palace. Other than 100 domains, what else is needed? Lin Yi didn't ask Silent Soul about the previous saintess. Instead, he changed the topic. He wanted to know the key to entering the sacred palace. Other than 100 domains, there must be other conditions. Otherwise, the 9-colored auspicious clouds wouldn't have such power. Even if he didn't know about the existence of the 9-colored auspicious clouds. However, he understood that the 9-colored auspicious clouds didn't exist for no reason. There must be a purpose. Perhaps the 9-colored auspicious clouds were to pave the way for the saintess to enter the sacred palace. Two people, if they join forces, at least 100 domains. Divine sense must at least be at the 40th level. They must have cultivated a powerful body refining technique. And formation pattern and formation Tao, these are the key to entering the sacred palace. Silent Soul said seriously. Lin Yi had all of these that she mentioned. Of course, other than formation Tao and formation pattern. Such a person, even if there were trillions of human geniuses, it would be hard to find one. In the kingdom of Cloud Sky, Lin Yi was unique. Can we go in now? Lin Yi looked at Silent Soul. It had been more than a day since he arrived at the Celestial Fox clan. He couldn't delay any longer, or he would miss the royal feast. Yes. Silent Soul nodded. After that, she walked towards the center of the palace. Lin Yi followed beside her without saying anything. But in his thoughts, he was communicating with Biluo. Nine-tailed celestial fox, dark attribute. It's amazing, she must have dual attributes. That attribute is definitely light attribute. Biluo's voice sounded. After listening to Lin Ye's explanation of Silent Soul's situation, Biluo analyzed and guessed that Silent Soul had dual attribute. And from her tone, it was obvious that she was very confident. He even mentioned the attributes of the other element. That's dark attribute martial arts and skills. Do you know where I can find them? Silent Soul didn't argue with Biluo. After all, Biluo was the one who had the authority in this aspect. Moreover, regardless of whether she had single or dual attributes, the most important thing now was Silent Soul's dark attribute martial arts and skills. These martial arts and skills. Really rare. But, I happen to have dark attribute martial arts and skills in my memory. Biluo's tone was a little proud. The martial arts and skills that she didn't want before, she didn't expect them to be so popular. Okay. You give her the dark attribute martial arts and skills to practice. Lin Yi didn't think too much about it. Since he had dark attribute martial arts and skills, he would give them to Silent Soul. Let's talk about it after we leave the Celestial Fox clan. Don't let others know that she has dark attribute. Dark attribute is a taboo. Biluo said seriously. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.